Act 1 of Trelawny of the Wells by Arthur Wing PINERO. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Persons of the Play. Theatrical Folk of the Bagnigge Wells Theatre.
Tom Wrench, read by Tomas
Ferdinand Gadd, read by Roger Moline.
James Telfer, read by Patrick Wallace.
Augustus Colpoys, read by Alan Mapstone.
Rose Trelawny, read by Eva
DavisAvonia Bunn, read by Leanne YauMrs.
Mrs. Telfer is Violet Sylvester, read by Susan Furman.
Imogen Parrott, read by
SoniaO'Dwyer,
Prompter at the Pantheon Theatre,
read by AidanVox.
Theatrical Folk of the Pantheon Theatre.
The Gentleman, Mr. Denzil, read by Tom Shortland.
The Lady, Miss Brewster, read by April 6090.
Non-theatrical folk.
Vice-Chancellor Sir William Gower, Knight, read by Todd.
Arthur Gower, his grandchild, read by Nemo.
Clara de Foenix, his grandchild, read by Sandra.
Miss Trafalgar Gower,
Sir William's sister,
read by Phone.
Captain de Foenix,
Clara's husband,
read by Peter Musgrove.
Mrs. Mossop, a landlady, read by T.J. Burns.
Mr. Ablett,
a grocer,
read by Roman Cornell.
Charles,
a butler,
read by Peter Musgrove.
Sarah, a maid, read by AvailleStage.
Stage Directions, read by Larry Wilson. The first act at Mr. and Mrs. Telfer's lodgings in No. 2 Bryden Crescent, Clerkenwell, May. The second act at Sir William Gower's in Cavendish Square, June. The third act again at Bryden Crescent, December. The fourth act on the stage of the Pantheon Theatre a few days later. Period, somewhere in the early 60s, 1860s. Note: Bagnigge Wells, formerly a popular mineral spring in Islington, London, situated not far from the better remembered Sadler's Wells. The gardens of Bagnigge Wells were at one time much resorted to, but as a matter of fact Bagnigge Wells, unlike Sadler's Wells, has never possessed a playhouse. Sadler's Wells Theatre, however, always familiarly known as the Wells, still exists. It was rebuilt in 1876-77. The costumes and scenic decorations of this little play should follow, to the closest detail, the mode of the early 60s, the period in dress of crinoline and the pig-top trouser, in furniture of horsehair and mahogany, and the abominable walnut and rep. No attempt should be made to modify such fashions in illustration to render them less strange, even less grotesque to the modern eye. On the contrary, there should be an endeavor to reproduce, perhaps to accentuate, any feature which may now seem particularly quaint and bizarre. Thus lovely youth should be shown decked uncompromisingly as it was at the time indicated, at the risk, which the author believes to be a slight one, pointing to the chastening moral, that while beauty fades assuredly in its own time, it may appear to succeeding generations not to have been beauty at all. The first act. The scene represents a sitting-room on the first floor of a respectable lodging-house. On the right are two sash windows, having Venetian blinds, and giving a view of houses on the other side of the street. The grate of the fireplace is hidden by an ornament composed of shavings and paper roses. Over the fireplace is a mirror. On each side there is a sideboard cupboard. On the left is a door, and a landing is seen outside. Between the windows stand a cottage piano and a piano stool. Above the sofa on the left stands a large black trunk, the lid bulging with its contents and displaying some soiled theatrical finery. On the front of the trunk, in faded lettering, appear the words Miss Violet Sylvester, Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. Under the sofa there are 2 or 3 pairs of ladies' satin shoes, much the worse for wear, and on the sofa a white satin bodice, yellow with age. a heap of dog-eared playbooks, and some other litter of a like character. On the top of the piano there is a wig block with a man's wig upon it, and in the corners of the room there stand some walking sticks and a few theatrical swords. In the center of the stage is a large circular table. There's a clean cover upon it, and on the top of the sideboard cupboards are knives and forks, plate, glass, cruet stands, and some gaudy flowers in vases, all suggesting preparations for festivity. The woodwork of the room is grained, the ceiling plainly whitewashed, the wall-paper is of a neutral tint and much faded. The pictures are engravings in maple frames, and a portrait or two in oil framed in gilt. The furniture, curtains, and carpet are worn, but everything is clean and well kept. The light is that of afternoon in early summer. Mrs. Mossop, a portly middle-aged Jewish lady, elaborately attired, is laying the tablecloth. Ablett enters hastily, divesting himself of his coat as he does so. He is dressed in rusty black for waiting. Mrs. Mossop in a fluster.
"Oh, here you are, Mr. Ablett."
"Good day, Mrs. Mossop."
Mrs. Mossop bringing the cruet stands.
"I declare I thought you'd forgotten me."
Ablett hanging his coat upon a curtain knob and turning up his shirt sleeves.
"I'd begun to fear I should never escape from the shop, Mum. Just as I was preparing to clean myself, the whole universe seemed to cry aloud for potatoes."
Relieving Mrs. Mossop of the cruet stands, and satisfying himself as to the contents of the various bottles.
"Now you take a seat, Mrs. Mossop. You have but to say, 'Mr. Ablett, lay for so many,' and the exact number shall be laid for."
Mrs. Mossop sinking into the armchair.
"I hope the affliction of short breath may be spared you, Ablett. 10 is the number."
Ablett whipping up the mustard energetically.
"Short breath you may be, Mum, but not short-sighted. That gal of yours is no ordinary gal. But to have set her to wait on 10 persons would have been to have caught disaster."
Bringing knives and forks, glass, etc., and glancing around the room as he does so.
"I am in Mr. and Mrs. Telfer's setting room, I believe, Mum."
Mrs. Mossop surveying the apartment complacently.
"And what a handsomely proportioned room it is, to be sure."
"May I ask if I am to have the honour of including my trifling fee for this job in their weekly book?"
"No, Ablett, a separate bill, please. The Telfers kindly give the use of their apartment to save the cost of holding the ceremony at the Clown Tavern. But share and share alike over the expenses is to be the order of the day."
"I thank you, Mum."
Rubbing up the knives with a napkin.
"You let fall the word ceremony, Mum?"
"Ah, Ablett, and a sad one. A farewell cold collation to Miss Trelawny."
"Lord bless me, I heard a rumour."
"A true rumour. She's taking her leave of us, the dear."
"This'll be a blow to the Wells, Mum."
"The best juvenile lady the Wells has known since Mr. Phillip's management."
"Report has it a love affair, Mum."
"A love affair indeed. And a poem into the bargain, Ablett, if poet was at hand to write it."
"Really, Mrs. Mossop."
Polishing a tumbler.
"Is the beer to be bottled or draught, ma'am, on this occasion?"
"Draught for Miss Trelawny, invariably."
"Then draught it must be all round, out of compliment. Just fancy. Never more to hear customers speak of Trelawney of the Wells, except in pleasing memory. A non-professional gentleman they give out, Mum."
"Yes."
"Name of Glover."
"Gower, grandson of the Vice-Chancellor Sir William Gower, Mr. Ablett."
"You don't say, Mum."
"No father nor mother, and lives in Cavendish Square with the old judge and a great-aunt."
"Then Miss Trelawney quits the profession, Mum, for good now, I presume?"
"Yes, Ablett. She's at the theatre at this moment, distributing some of her little ornaments and fallals among the ballet. She played last night for the last time. The last time on any stage."
Rising and going to the sideboard cupboard.
and without so much as a line in the bill to announce it. What a benefit she might have taken.
I know one who was good for 2 box tickets, Mrs. Mossop.
Mrs. Mossop bringing the flowers to the table and arranging them, while Ablett sets out the knives and forks.
But no fuss, said the Gower family. No publicity. Withdraw quietly. That was the Gower family's injunctions. Withdraw quietly and have done with it.
And when is the wedding to be, Mum?
It's not yet decided, Mr. Ablett. In point of fact, before the Gower family positively say yes to the union, Miss Trelawny is to make her home in Cavendish Square for a short term. Short term is the Gower family's own expression, in order to habituate herself to the West End. They're sending their carriage for her at 2 o'clock this afternoon, Mr. Ablett. Their carriage and a pair of bay horses.
Well, I dare say. A West End life has superior advantages over the profession in some respects, Mrs. Mossop.
When accompanied by wealth, Mr. Ablett. Here's Miss Trelawny but 19, and in a month or two's time, she'll be ordering about her own powdered footman, and playing on her grand piano. How many actresses do that, I should like to know?
Tom Wrench's voice is heard. Tom outside the door.
Rebecca! Rebecca, my loved one!
Oh, go along with you, Mr. Wrench.
Tom enters with a pair of scissors in his hand. He is a shabbily dressed, ungraceful man of about 30, with a clean-shaven face, curly hair, and eyes full of good humor.
My own especial Rebecca.
Don't be a fool, Mr. Wrench. Now I've no time to waste. I know you want something.
Everything adorable. But most desperately do I stand in need of a little skilful trimming at your fair hands.
Mrs. Mossop taking the scissors from him and clipping the frayed edges of his shirt cuffs and collar.
First it's patching a coat, and then it's binding an Inverness. Sometimes I wish that top room of mine was empty.
And sometimes I wish my heart was empty, cruel Rebecca.
Mrs. Mossop giving him a thump.
Now I really will tell Mossop of you when he comes home. I've often threatened it.
Tom to Ablett.
Whom do I see? No, it can't be. But yes, I believe I have the privilege of addressing Mr. Ablett, the eminent greengrocer of Rosamond Street.
Ablett sulkily.
Well, Mr. Wrench, and what of it?
You possess a cart, good Ablett, which may be hired by persons of character and responsibility. By the hour or job, so runs the legend, I will charter it one of these Sundays for a drive to Epping.
I don't know so much about that, Mr. Wrench.
Look to the springs, good Ablett, for this comely lady will be my companion.
Deuce take your impudence. Give me your other hand. Haven't you been to rehearsal this morning with the rest of 'em?
I have, and have left my companion still toiling. My share in the interpretation of Sheridan Knowles' immortal work did not necessitate my remaining after the first act.
Another poor part, I suppose, Mr. Wrench?
Another, and tomorrow yet another, and on Saturday 2 others, all equally damnably rotten.
Ah, well. Somebody must play the bad parts in this world, on and off the stage. There.
Returning the scissors.
There's no more edge left to fray. We've come to the soft.
He points the scissors at his breast.
Ah, don't do that.
You are right, sweet Mossop. I won't perish on an empty stomach.
Taking her aside.
But tell me, shall I disgrace the feast, eh? Is my appearance too scandalously seedy?
Not it, my dear.
Miss Trelawny, do you think she'll regard me as a blot on the banquet? Do you, Becky?
She? La! Don't distress yourself. She'll be too excited to notice you.
Yes, now I recollect. She has always been that. Thanks, Becky.
A knock at the front door is heard. Mrs. Mossop hurries to the window down the stage.
Who's that?
Opening the window and looking out.
It's Miss Parrott. Miss Parrott's arrived.
Jenny Parrott? Has Jenny condescended?
Jenny? Where are your manners, Mr. Wrench?
Miss Imogen Parrott of the Olympic Theatre.
Mrs. Mossop at the door to Ablett.
Put your coat on, Ablett. We are not selling cabbages.
She disappears and is heard speaking in the distance.
Step up, Miss Parrott. Tell Miss Parrott to mind that mat, Sarah. Be quick, Ablett, be quick. The elite is below. More dispatch, good Ablett.
Ablett to Tom spitefully, while struggling into his coat.
Miss Trelawny's leaving will make all the difference to the old Wells. The season'll terminate abrupt, and then the company will be out, Mr. Wrench. Out, sir.
Tom adjusting his necktie at the mirror over the piano.
Which will lighten the demand for the spongy turnip and the watery marrow, my poor Ablett.
Ablett, under his breath.
Presumptuous.
He produces a pair of white cotton gloves, and having put one on, makes a horrifying discovery.
2 lefts. That's Mrs. Ablett all over.
During the rest of the act, he is continually in difficulties through his efforts to wear one of the gloves upon his right hand. Mrs. Mossop now re-enters with Imogen Parrott. Imogen is a pretty light-hearted young woman of about 27, daintily dressed. Mrs. Mossop to Imogen.
There. It might be only yesterday you lodged in my house. To see you gliding up those stairs. And this the very room you shared with poor Miss Brooker.
Imogen advancing to Tom.
Well, Wrench, and how are you?
Tom bringing her a chair, demonstratively dusting the seat of it with his pocket handkerchief.
Thank you. Much the same as when you used to call me Tom.
Oh, but I have turned over a new leaf, you know, since I have been at the Olympic.
I am sure my chairs don't require dusting, Mr. Wrench.
Tom placing the chair below the table and blowing his nose with his handkerchief with a flourish.
My way of showing homage, Mossop.
Miss Parrott sat on them often enough when she was an honoured member of the Wells. Haven't you, Miss Parrott?
Imogen sitting with playful dignity.
I suppose I must have done so. Don't remind me of it. I sit on nothing nowadays but down pillows covered with cloth of gold.
Mrs. Mossop and Ablett prepare to withdraw. Mrs. Mossop at the door to Imogen.
I could fancy I'm looking at Undine again. Undine, the spirit of the waters. She's not the least changed since she appeared in Undine, is she, Mr. Ablett?
Ablett joining Mrs. Mossop.
No, or as Prince Camaralzaman, in the pantomime. I never hoped to see a pair of prettier limbs.
Now then.
She pushes him out. They disappear. Imogen after a shiver at Ablett's remark.
In my present exalted station, I don't hear much of what goes on at the Wells, Wrench. Are your abilities still
unrecognized, still confined within the almost boundless and yet repressive limits of utility, general utility?
Nodding.
Still.
Dear me, 1,000 pities. I positively mean it.
Thanks.
What do you think? You were mixed up in a funny dream I dreamt one night lately.
Tom bowing.
Highly complimented.
It was after supper, which rather... well, I'd had some strawberries sent me from Hertfordshire.
Indigestion levels all ranks.
It was a nightmare. I found myself on the stage of the Olympic, in that wig you... oh, gracious! You used to play your very serious little parts in it.
The wig with the ringlets?
Whoa, yes.
I wear it tonight, for the second time this week, in a part which is very serious. And very little.
Heavens! It is in existence, then?
And long will be, I hope. I've only 3 wigs, and this one accommodates itself to so many periods.
Oh, how it used to amuse the gallery boys.
They still enjoy it. If you looked in this evening at 7:30, I'm done at 7:45. If you looked in at 7:30, you would hear the same glad, rapturous murmur in the gallery when the presence of that wig is discovered. Not that they fail to laugh at my other wigs, at every article of adornment I possess, in fact. Good God, Jenny!
Imogen wincing.
Shh.
Miss Parrott, if they gave up laughing at me now, I believe I should miss it. I believe I couldn't spout my few lines now in silence. My unaccompanied voice would sound so strange to me. Besides, I often think those gallery boys are really fond of me at heart. You can't laugh as they do. Rock with laughter sometimes at what you dislike.
Of course not. Of course they like you, Wrench. You cheer them, make their lives happier.
And tonight, by the by, I also assumed that beast of a felt hat, the grey hat with the broad brim, and the imitation wool feathers. You remember it?
Yes.
I see you do. Well, that hat still persists in falling off when I most wish it to stick on. It will tilt and tumble tonight, during one of Telfer's pet speeches. I feel it will. And those yellow boots, I wear them tonight.
No.
Yes.
Tom with forced hilarity.
Oh, ha, ha! And the spurs that once tore your satin petticoat, you recollect?
Imogen, her mirth suddenly checked.
Recollect.
You would see those spurs tonight, too, if you patronized us. And the red worsted tights. The worsted tights are a little thinner, a little more faded and discoloured, a little more darned. Oh, yes, thank you. I am still, as you put it, still...
He walks away, going to the mantelpiece, and turning his back upon her. Imogen, after a brief pause.
I'm sure I didn't intend to hurt your feelings, Wrench.
Tom, turning with some violence.
You hurt my feelings. Nobody can hurt my feelings. Ha! I have no feelings.
Ablett re-enters, carrying 3 chairs of odd patterns. Tom seizes the chairs and places them about the table noisily.
Look here, Mr. Wrench. If I'm to be hampered in performing my duties...
More chairs, Ablett. In my apartment, the chamber nearest heaven, you will find one with a loose leg. We will seat Mrs. Telfer upon that. She dislikes me, and she is, in every sense, a heavy woman.
Ablett moving toward the door, dropping his glove.
My opinion. You are meaning to harass me, Mr. Wrench.
Tom picking up the glove and throwing it to Ablett, singing,
Take back thy glove, thou faithless fair. Your glove, Ablett.
Thank you, sir. It is my glove. And you are no gentleman.
He withdraws.
True, Ablett. Not even a walking gentleman.
Don't go on so, Wrench. What about your plays? Aren't you trying to write any plays just now?
Trying? I am doing more than trying to write plays. I am writing plays. I have written plays.
Well?
My cupboard upstairs is choked with them.
Won't anyone take a fancy?
Not a sufficiently violent fancy.
You know, the speeches were so short and had such ordinary words in them, in the plays you used to read to me. No big opportunity for the leading lady, Wrench.
Yes. I strive to make my people talk and behave like live people, don't I?
I suppose you do.
To fashion heroes out of actual, dull, everyday men. The sort of men you see smoking cheroots in the club windows in St. James Street, and heroines from simple maidens in muslin frocks. Naturally, the managers won't stand that.
Why, of course not.
If they did, the public wouldn't.
Is it likely? Is it likely?
I wonder.
Wonder what?
Whether they would.
The public?
The public. Jenny, I wonder about it sometimes so hard that little bedroom of mine becomes a banqueting hall, and this lodging-house a castle.
There is a loud and prolonged knocking at the front door.
Here they are, I suppose.
Tom pulling himself together.
Good Lord, have I become dishevelled?
Why, are you anxious to make an impression, even down to the last, Wrench?
Stop that.
It's no good your being sweet on her any longer, surely.
Tom glaring at her.
What cats you all are, you girls.
Imogen holding up her hand.
Oh, dear, how vulgar, after the Olympic.
Ablett returns carrying 3 more chairs. Ablett arranging these chairs on the left side of the table.
They're all home.
Tom places the 4 chairs belonging to the room at the table. To Imogen.
She looks heavenly, Miss Trelawny does. I was just taken in the air when she floated down the crescent on her lover's arm.
Wagging his head at Imogen admiringly.
There, I don't know which of you two is the...
Men, keep your place.
As you please, miss. But you apparently forget I used to serve you with vegetables.
He takes up a position at the door as Telfer and Gadd enter. Telfer is a thick-set, elderly man with a worn, clean-shaven face and iron-gray hair, clubbed in the theatrical fashion of the time. Sonorous, if somewhat husky in speech, and elaborately dignified in bearing, he is at the same time a little uncertain about his H's. Gadd is a flashily dressed young man of 27, with brown hair arranged a la Byron, and moustache of a deeper tone. Telfer advancing to Imogen and kissing her paternally.
Ah, my dear child, I heard you, Maria. Kind of you to visit us. Welcome. I'll just put my hat down.
He places his hat on the top of the piano and proceeds to inspect the table. Gadd coming to Imogen in an elegant, languishing way.
Imogen, my darling.
Kissing her.
Kiss Ferdy.
Well, Gadd, how goes it? I mean, how are you?
Gadd earnestly.
I'm hitting them hard this season, my darling. Tonight, Sir Thomas Clifford. They're simply waiting for my Clifford.
But who on earth is your Julia?
Ha! Mrs. Telfer goes on for it. A veritable stopgap. Absurd, of course, but we daren't keep my Clifford from them any longer.
You'll miss Rose Trelawny in business pretty badly, I expect, Gadd.
Gadd with a shrug of the shoulders.
She was to have done Rosalind for my benefit. Miss Fitzhugh joins on Monday. I must pull her through it somehow. I would reconsider my bill, but they're waiting for my Orlando, waiting for it.
Colpoys enters, an insignificant, wizened little fellow who is unable to forget that he is a low comedian. He stands left, squinting hideously at Imogen, and indulging in extravagant gestures of endearment while she continues her conversation with Gadd. Colpoys failing to attract her attention.
My love, my life.
Imogen nodding to him indifferently.
Good afternoon, Augustus.
Colpoys ridiculously.
She speaks. She hears me.
Ablett holding his glove before his mouth, convulsed with laughter.
Oh, Mr. Colpoys. Oh, really, sir? Oh, dear.
Gadd to Imogen darkly.
Colpoys is not nearly as funny as he was last year. Everybody's saying so. We want a low comedian badly.
He retires, deposits his hat on the wig block, and joins Telfer and Tom. Colpoys staggering to Imogen and throwing his arms about her neck.
After all these years.
Imogen pushing him away.
Do be careful of my things, Colpoys.
Ablett going out, blind with mirth. He collides with Mrs. Telfer, who is entering at this moment. Mrs. Telfer is a tall, massive lady of middle age, a faded queen of tragedy. Ablett as he disappears.
I'm sure I beg your pardon, Mrs. Telfer, mum.
Violent fellow.
Advancing to Imogen and kissing her solemnly.
How is it with you, Jenny Parrott?
Thank you, Mrs. Telfer, as well as can be. And you?
Mrs. Telfer waving away the inquiry.
I am obliged to you for this response to my invitation. It struck me as fitting that at such a time you should return for a brief hour or two to the company of your old associates.
becoming conscious of Colpoys behind her, making grimaces at Imogen. Turning to Colpoys and surprising him.
Oh, yes, Augustus Colpoys, you are extremely humorous. Off.
Colpoys stung.
Miss Sylvester? Mrs. Telfer?
On the stage, sir, you are enough to make a cat weep.
Madam, from one artist to another? Well, upon my soul.
Retreating and talking under his breath.
Popular favourite. Draw more money than all the old guys.
Mrs. Telfer following him.
What do you say, sir? Do you mutter?
They explain mutually. Avonia Bunn enters, an untidy, tawdrily dressed young woman of about 23, with the airs of a suburban soubrette. Avonia embracing Imogen.
Dear old girl.
Well, Avonia.
This is jolly, seeing you again. Oh, my eye, what a rig out. She'll be up directly.
With a gulp.
She's taking a last look round at our room.
You've been crying, Avonia.
No, I haven't.
Breaking down.
If I have, I can't help it. Rose and I have chummed together all this season, and part of last, and it's a hateful profession. The moment you make a friend.
Looking toward the door.
There. Isn't she a dream? I dressed her.
She moves away as Rose Trelawny and Arthur Gower enter. Rose is 19, wears washed muslin, and looks divine. She has much of the extravagance of gesture, over-emphasis in speech, and freedom of manner engendered by the theatre, but is graceful and charming nevertheless. Arthur is a handsome, boyish young man, all eyes for Rose. Rose meeting Imogen.
Dear Imogen.
Imogen kissing her.
Rose, dear.
To think of your journeying from the west to see me make my exit from Bryden Crescent. But you're a good sort. You always were. Do sit down and tell me. Oh, let me introduce Mr. Gower. Mr. Arthur Gower, Miss Imogen Parrott, the Miss Parrott of the Olympic.
Arthur reverentially.
I know. I've seen Miss Parrott as Jupiter, and as, I forget the name, in the new comedy.
Imogen and Rose sit below the table.
He forgets everything but the parts I play, and the pieces I play in, poor child. Don't you, Arthur?
Arthur standing by Rose, looking down upon her.
Yes. No. Well, of course I do. How can I help it, Miss Parrott? Miss Parrott won't think the worse of me for that, will you, Miss Parrott?
I'm going to remove my bonnet. Imogen Parrott?
Thank you. I'll keep my hat on, Mrs. Telfer. Take care.
Mrs. Telfer, and turning to go, encounters Ablett, who is entering with 2 jugs of beer. Some of the beer is spilt.
I beg your pardon, Mum.
Mrs. Telfer examining her skirts.
Ruffian!
She departs. Rose to Arthur.
Go and talk to the boys. I haven't seen Miss Parrott for ages.
And backing away from them, Arthur comes against Ablett.
I beg your pardon, sir.
I beg yours.
Ablett grasping Arthur's hand.
Excuse the freedom, sir. If freedom you regard it as.
Huh?
You have plucked the flower, sir. You have stole our choicest blossom.
Arthur trying to get away.
Yes, I know.
Cherish it, Mr. Glover.
I will, thank you.
Mrs. Mossop's voice is heard calling, Ablett! Ablett releases Arthur and goes out. Arthur joins Colpoys and Tom. Rose to Imogen.
The carriage will be here in half an hour. I've so much to say to you. Imogen, the brilliant hits you've made. How lucky you have been.
My luck? What about yours?
Yes, isn't this a wonderful stroke of fortune for me? Fate, Jenny, that's what it is, fate. Fate ordains that I shall be a well-to-do fashionable lady instead of a popular but toiling actress. Mother often used to stare in my face when I was little and whisper, "Rosie, I wonder what is to be your fate." Poor mother, I hope she sees.
Your Arthur seems nice.
Oh, he's a dear. Very young, of course. Not much more than a year older than me, than I. But he'll grow manly in time and have mustaches and whiskers out to here, he says.
How did you...
He saw me act Blanche in The Peddler of Marseille and fell in love.
Do you prefer Blanche?
To Celestine? Oh, yes. You see, I got leave to introduce a song where Blanche is waiting for Raphael on the bridge.
Singing dramatically, but in low tones.
Ever of thee I'm fondly dreaming.
I know.
Thy gentle voice my spirit can cheer. It was singing that song that sealed my destiny, Arthur declares. At any rate, the next thing was he began sending bouquets and coming to the stage door. Of course, I never spoke to him, never glanced at him. Poor mother brought me up in that way, not to speak to anybody nor look.
Quite right.
I do hope she sees.
And then?
Then Arthur managed to get acquainted with the Telfers, and Mrs. Telfer presented him to me. Mrs. Telfer has kept an eye on me all through. Not that it was necessary, brought up as I was, but she's a kind old soul.
And now you're going to live with his people for a time, aren't you?
Yes, on approval.
You don't mean that.
Well, in a way, just to reassure them, as they put it. The Gowers have such odd ideas about theatres and actors and actresses.
Do you think you'll like the arrangement?
It'll only be for a little while. I fancy they're prepared to take to me, especially Miss Trafalgar Gower.
Trafalgar?
Sir William's sister. She was born Trafalgar Year and christened after it.
Mrs. Mossop and Ablett enter, carrying trays on which are a pile of plates and various dishes of cold food, a joint, a chicken and a tongue, a ham, a pigeon pie, etc. They proceed to set out the dishes upon the table. Imogen cheerfully.
Well, God bless you, my dear. I'm afraid I couldn't give up the stage, though. Not for all the Arthurs.
Your mother wasn't an actress.
No.
Mine was, and I remember her saying to me once, "Rose, if ever you have the chance, get out of it."
The profession?
Yes, get out of it, Mother said. If ever a good man comes along and offers to marry you and take you off the stage, seize the chance. Get out of it.
Your mother was never popular, was she?
Yes, indeed she was most popular, till she grew oldish and lost her looks.
Oh, that's what she meant, then.
Yes, that's what she meant.
Imogen shivering.
Oh, Lord, doesn't it make one feel depressed? Poor mother.
Well, I hope she sees.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, everything is prepared, and I do trust to your pleasure and satisfaction.
Ladies and gentlemen, I beg you to be seated.
There is a general movement.
Miss Trelawney will sit here on my right. On my left, my friend Mr. Gower will sit. Next to Miss Trelawney, who will sit beside Miss Trelawney?
I will.
I will.
No, do let me.
Gadd, Colpoys, and Avonia gather round Rose and wrangle for the vacant place. Rose standing by her chair.
It must be a gentleman, Vonia. Now, if you two boys quarrel...
Please, don't push me, Colpoys.
Upon my soul, Gadd.
I know how to settle it. Tom Wrench?
Tom coming to her.
Yes.
Colpoys and Gadd move away, arguing. Imogen seating herself.
Mr. Gadd and Mr. Colpoys shall sit by me, one on each side.
Colpoys sits on Imogen's right, Gadd on her left. Avonia sits between Tom and Gadd. Mrs. Mossop on the right of Colpoys. Amid much chatter, the viands are carved by Mrs. Mossop, Telfer, and Tom. Some plates of chicken, etc., are handed round by Ablett, while others are passed about by those at the table. Gadd quietly to Imogen, during a pause in the hubbub.
Telfer takes the chair, you observe. Why he, more than myself, for instance?
Imogen to Gadd.
The Telfers have lent their room.
Their stuffy room, that's no excuse. I repeat, Telfer has thrust himself into this position.
He's the oldest man present.
True, and he begins to age in his acting, too. His H's scarce as pearls.
Yes, that's shocking. Now at the Olympic, slip an H, and you're damned forever.
And he's losing all his teeth. To act with him, it makes the house seem half empty.
Ablett is now going about, pouring out the ale. Occasionally he drops his glove, misses it, and recovers it. Telfer to Imogen.
Miss Parrott, my dear, follow the counsel of one who has sat at many a good man's feast. Have a little lamb.
Thanks, Mr. Telfer.
Mrs. Telfer returns.
Sitting down to the table in my absence? How is this, James?
We are pressed for time, Violet, my love.
Very sorry, Mrs. Telfer.
Mrs. Telfer taking her place between Arthur and Mrs. Mossop, gloomily.
A strange proceeding.
Rehearsal was over so late.
To Telfer.
You didn't get to the last act till 1:45, did you?
Avonia taking off her hat and flinging it across the table to Colpoys.
Gus, catch! Put it on the sofa, there's a dear boy.
Colpoys perches the hat upon his head and behaves in a ridiculous, mincing way. Ablett is again convulsed with laughter. Some of the others are amused also, but more moderately.
Take that off, Gus! Mr. Colpoys, you just take my hat off!
Colpoys rises, imitating the manners of a woman, and deposits the hat on the sofa.
Oh, no, Mr. Colpoys. Oh, no, don't, sir.
Colpoys returns to the table. Gadd quietly to Imogen.
It makes me sick to watch Colpoys in private life. He'd stand on his head in the street if he could get a ragged infant to laugh at him.
Picking the leg of a fowl furiously.
What I say is this. Why can't an actor in private life be simply a gentleman?
Loudly and haughtily.
More tongue here.
Ablett hurrying to him.
Yes, sir. Certainly, sir.
Again discomposed by some antic on the part of Colpoys.
Oh, don't, Mr. Colpoys.
Going to Telfer with Gadd's plate, speaking while Telfer carves a slice of tongue.
I shan't easily forget this afternoon, Mr. Telfer.
Exhausted.
This'll be something to tell Mrs. Ablett. Ha ha! Oh dear, oh dear.
Ablett, averting his face from Colpoys, brings back Gadd's plate. By an unfortunate chance, Ablett's glove has found its way to the plate and is handed to Gadd by Ablett. Gadd picking up the glove in disgust.
Merciful powers, what's this?
Ablett taking the glove.
I beg your pardon, sir. My error, entirely.
A firm rat-tat-tat at the front door is heard. There is a general exclamation. At the same moment, Sarah, a diminutive servant in a crinoline, appears at the doorway. Sarah, breathlessly.
The carriage has just drove up.
Imogen, Gadd, Colpoys, and Avonia go to the windows, open them, and look out. Mrs. Mossop hurries away, pushing Sarah before her.
Dear me, before a single speech has been made.
Avonia at the window.
Rose, do look.
Imogen at the other window.
Come here, Rose.
Rose shaking her head.
I'm in no hurry. I shall see it often enough.
Turning to Tom.
Well, the time has arrived.
Laying down her knife and fork.
Oh, I'm so sorry now.
Are you? I'm glad.
Glad? That is hateful of you, Tom Wrench.
Arthur looking at his watch.
The carriage is certainly 2 or 3 minutes before its time, Mr. Telfer.
2 or 3? The speeches, my dear sir, the speeches.
Mrs. Mossop returns, panting.
The footman, a nice-looking young man with hazel eyes, says the carriage and pair can wait for a little bit. They must be back by 3 to take their lady into the park.
Telfer rising.
Resume your seats, I beg, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait, we're not ready.
Imogen, Gadd, Colpoys, and Avonia return to their places. Mrs. Mossop also sits again. Ablett stands by the door. Telfer producing a paper from his breast pocket.
Ladies and gentlemen, I devoted some time this morning to the preparation of a list of toasts. I now hold that list in my hand. The first toast...
He pauses to assume a pair of spectacles. Gadd to Imogen.
He arranges the toast list. He.
Hush.
The first toast that figures here is naturally that of the Queen.
Laying his hand on Arthur's shoulder.
With my young friend's chariot at the door, his horses pawing restlessly and fretfully upon the stones, I am prevented from expatiating upon the merits of this toast. Suffice it, both Mrs. Telfer and I have had the honour of acting before Her Majesty upon no less than 2 occasions.
Gadd to Imogen.
Tish, an old story.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you...
To Colpoys.
The malt is with you, Mr. Colpoys.
Colpoys handing the L to Telfer.
Here you are, Telfer.
Telfer filling his glass.
I give you the Queen, coupling with that toast the name of Miss Violet Sylvester, Mrs. Telfer, formerly, as you are aware, of the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. Miss Sylvester has so frequently, and if I may say so, so nobly impersonated the various queens of tragedy, that I cannot but feel she is a fitting person to acknowledge our expression of loyalty.
Raising his glass.
The Queen and Miss Violet Sylvester.
All rise except Mrs. Telfer and drink the toast. After drinking, Mrs. Mossop passes her tumbler to Ablett.
The Queen, Miss Violet Sylvester.
He drinks and returns the glass to Mrs. Mossop. The company being reseated, Mrs. Telfer rises. Her reception is a polite one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have played 14 or 15 queens in my time.
13, my love, to be exact. I was calculating this morning.
Very well, I have played 13 of 'em. And as parts, they are not worth a tinker's oath. I thank you for the favour with which you have received me.
She sits. The applause is heartier. During the demonstration, Sarah appears in the doorway with a kitchen chair. Ablett to Sarah.
What's all this?
Is the speeches on?
On? And you be off.
She places the chair against the open door and sits, full of determination. At intervals, Ablett vainly represents to her the impropriety of her proceeding. Telfer again rising.
Ladies and gentlemen, bumpers, I charge ye. The toast I had next intended to propose was our immortal bard Shakespeare, and I had meant myself to have offered a few remarks in response.
Gadd to Imogen bitterly.
Ha!
But with our friends' horses champing their bits, I am compelled, nay forced, to postpone this toast to a later period of the day, and to give you now what we may justly designate the toast of the afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to part with one of our companions, a young comrade who came amongst us many months ago, who in fact joined the company of the Wells last February 12th, after a considerable experience in the provinces of this great country.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
With a sob.
I detested her at first.
Order.
Be quiet, Vonia.
Her late mother, An actress, herself made familiar with the stage from childhood, if not from infancy, Miss Rose Trelawny. For I will no longer conceal from you that it is to Miss Trelawny I refer.
Loud applause.
Miss Trelawny is the stuff of which great actresses are made.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Hear,
Hear, hear.
Ear, ear.
So much for the actress. Now for the young lady, nay, the woman, the girl. Rose is a good girl.
Loud applause, to which Ablett and Sarah contribute largely. Avonia rises and impulsively embraces Rose. She is recalled to her seat by a general remonstrance.
A good girl.
Mrs. Telfer, clutching a knife.
Yes, and I should like to hear anybody, man or woman.
She is a good girl, and will be long remembered by us as much for her private virtues as for the commanding authority of her genius.
More applause, during which there is a sharp altercation between Ablett and Sarah.
And now, what has happened to the expectancy and rose of the fair state?
Good, Telfer, good.
Gadd to Imogen.
Tish, Tish, forced, forced.
I will tell you, a man has crossed her path.
Shame.
Mrs. Mossop, turning to him.
Mr. Ablett.
A man, but also a gentleman.
Applause.
A gentleman of probity, a gentleman of honour, and a gentleman of wealth and station. That gentleman, with the modesty of youth, for I may tell you at once that he is not an old man, comes to us and asks us to give him this girl to wife. And friends, we have done so. A few preliminaries have, I believe, still to be concluded between Mr. Gower and his family, and then the bond will be signed, the compact entered upon, the mutual trust accepted. Riches this youthful pair will possess, but what is gold? May they be rich in each other's society, in each other's love. May they, I can wish them no greater joy, be as happy in their married life as as Miss Sylvester and I have been in ours.
Raising his glass.
Miss Rose Trelawny, Mr. Arthur Gower.
The toast is drunk by the company, upstanding. 3 cheers are called for by Colpoys and given. Those who have risen, then sit.
Miss Trelawny.
Rose, weeping.
No, no, Mr. Telfer.
Let her be for a minute, James.
Mr. Gower.
Arthur rises and is well received.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would I were endowed with Mr. Telfer's flow of splendid eloquence, but I am no orator, no speaker, and therefore cannot tell you how highly, how deeply I appreciate the compliment.
You deserve it, Mr. Glover.
Hush!
All I can say is that I regard Miss Trelawny in the light of a solemn charge, and I trust that if ever I have the pleasure of meeting any of you again, I shall be able to render a good, satisfactory account of the way in which
Loud applause.
Before I bring these observations to a conclusion, let me assure you that it has been a great privilege to me to have been thrown with a band of artists whose striking talents,
Tom kindly behind his hand.
Sit down.
Arthur helplessly.
Whose talents not only interest and instruct the the more refined residents of this district, but whose talents...
Imogen quietly to Colpoys.
Get him to sit down.
The fame of whose talents, I should say...
Colpoys quietly to Mrs. Mossop.
He's to sit down. Tell Mother Telfer.
The fame of whose talents has spread to regions...
Mrs. Mossop quietly to Mrs. Telfer.
They say he's to sit down.
To quarters of the town, to quarters...
Mrs. Telfer to Arthur.
Sit down.
Huh?
You finished long ago. Sit down.
Thank you. I'm exceedingly sorry. Great heavens, how wretchedly I've done it.
He sits bearing his head in his hands. More applause.
Rose, my child.
Rose starts to her feet. The rest rise with her, and cheer again, and wave handkerchiefs. She goes from one to the other, round the table, embracing and kissing and crying over them all excitedly. Sarah is kissed, but upon Ablett is bestowed only a handshake, to his evident dissatisfaction. Imogen runs to the piano and strikes up the air of Ever of Thee. When Rose gets back to the place, she mounts her chair, with the aid of Tom and Telfer, and faces them with flashing eyes. They pull the flowers out of the vases and throw them at her.
Mr. Telfer, Mrs. Telfer, my friends, boys, ladies and gentlemen. No, don't stop, Jenny. Go on.
Singing, her arms stretched out to them.
Ever of thee I'm fondly dreaming, thy gentle voice. You remember the song I sang in The Peddler of Marseille, which made Arthur fall in love with me? Well, I know I shall dream of you, of all of you, very often, as the song says. Don't believe...
Wiping away her tears.
Oh, don't believe that, because I shall have married a swell. You and the old Wells, the dear old Wells.
Cheers.
You and the old Wells will have become nothing to me. No, many and many a night you will see me in the house, looking down at you from the circle, me and my husband.
Yes, certainly.
And if you send for me, I'll come behind the curtain to you, and sit with you and talk of bygone times, these times that end today. And shall I tell you the moments which will be the happiest to me in my life, however happy I may be with Arthur? Why, whenever I find that I am recognized by people, and pointed out, people in the pit of a theatre, in the street, no matter where, and when I can fancy they're saying to each other, "Look, that was Miss Trelawny. You remember, Trelawny of the Wells."
They cry, "Trelawny, and Trelawny of the Wells," and again Trelawny, wildly. Then there's the sound of a sharp rat-tat-tat at the front door. Imogen leaves the piano and looks out of the window. Imogen to somebody below.
What is it?
Miss Trelawny, Ma'am, we can't wait.
Rose, weakly.
Oh, help me down.
They assist her and gather round her. End of Act 1. Act 2, A Trelawny of the Wales, by Arthur Wing Pinero. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The scene represents a spacious drawing room in the house at Cavendish Square. The walls are sombre in tone, the ceiling dingy, the hangings, though rich, are faded, and altogether the appearance of the room is solemn, formal, and depressing. On the right are folding doors admitting to a further drawing room. Beyond these is a single door. The wall on the left is mainly occupied by 3 sash windows. The wall facing the spectators is divided by 2 pilasters into 3 panels. On the center panel is a large mirror, reflecting the fireplace. On the right hangs a large oil painting, a portrait of Sir William Gower in his judicial wig and robes. On the left hangs a companion picture, a portrait of Miss Gower. In the corners of the room there are marble columns, supporting classical busts, and between the doors stands another marble column, upon which is an oil lamp. Against the lower window there are 2 chairs and a card table. Behind a further table supporting a lamp stands a 3-fold screen. The lamps are lighted, but the curtains are not drawn, and outside the window it is twilight. Sir William Gower is seated near a table asleep, with a newspaper over his head, concealing his face. Miss Trafalgar Gower is sitting at the further end of the couch, also asleep, and with a newspaper over her head. At the lower end of this couch sits Mrs. de Foenix, Clara, a young lady of 19, with a married air. She is engaged upon some crochet work. On the other side of the room, near a table, Rose is seated, wearing the look of a boredom which has reached the stony stage. On another couch Arthur sits, gazing at his boots, his hands in his pockets. On the right of this couch stands Captain de Foenix, leaning against the wall, his mouth open, his head thrown back, and his eyes closed. De Foenix is a young man of 27, an example of the heavily whiskered swell of the period. Everybody is in dinner dress. After a moment or two Arthur rises and tiptoes down to Rose. Clara raises a warning finger and says, "Hush." He nods to her in assent. Arthur on Rose's left in a whisper.
Quiet, isn't it?
Rose to him in a whisper.
Quiet, Arthur.
Clutching his arm.
Oh, this dreadful half-hour after dinner. Every evening.
Arthur creeping across to the right of the table and sitting there.
Grandfather and Aunt Trafalgar must wake up soon. They're longer than usual tonight.
Rose to him across the table.
Your sister Clara over there and Captain de Foenix, when they were courting, did they have to go through this?
Yes.
And now that they are married, they still endure it.
Yes.
And we, when we are married, Arthur, shall we?
Yes, I suppose so.
Rose passing her hand across her brow.
Phew.
De Foenix, fast asleep, is now swaying and in danger of toppling over. Clara grasps the situation and rises. Clara in a guttural whisper.
Frederick, no.
Rose and Arthur turning in their chairs.
What?
As Clara reaches her husband, he lurches forward into her arms. De Foenix, his eyes bolting.
Oh, who?
Frederick, dear, wake!
De Foenix dazed.
How did this occur?
You were tottering, and I caught you.
De Foenix collecting his senses.
I remember. I placed myself in an upright position, dearest, to prevent myself dozing.
Clara sinking onto the couch.
How you alarmed me.
Seeing that Rose is laughing, De Foenix comes down to her.
Might have been a very serious accident, Miss Trelawney.
Rose seating herself on the footstool.
Never mind.
Pointing to the chair she has vacated.
Sit down and talk.
He glances at the old people and shakes his head.
Oh, do sit down, and let us all have a jolly whisper.
He sits.
Thank you, Captain Fred. Go on, tell me something, anything. Something about the military.
De Foenix again looking at the old people, then wagging his finger at Rose.
I know, you want to get me into a row.
Settling himself into his chair.
Horrid girl.
Rose despairingly.
Ah.
There is a brief pause, and then the sound of a street organ playing in the distance is heard. The air is Ever of Thee.
Hark! Hark!
Hush!
Shh!
Hush!
Rose heedlessly.
The song I sang in The Peddler in Marseille, the song that used to make you cry, Arthur.
They attempt vainly to hush her down, but she continues dramatically in hoarse whispers.
And then Raphael enters, comes on to the bridge. The music continues softly. Raphael, why have you kept me waiting? Man, do you wish to break my heart?
Thumping her breast.
Und hart, Raphael!
Sir William and Miss Gower suddenly whip off their newspapers and sit erect. Sir William is a grim, bullet-headed old gentleman of about 70. Miss Gower a spare, prim lady of gentle manners, verging upon 60. They stare at each other for a moment silently.
What a hideous riot, Trafalgar!
Rose dear, I hope you have been mistaken, but through my sleep I fancied I could hear you shrieking at the top of your voice.
Sir William gets on to his feet. All rise except Rose, who remains seated sullenly.
Trafalgar, it is becoming impossible for you and me to obtain repose.
Turning his head sharply.
Ah! Is not that a street organ?
To Miss Gower.
An organ?
Undoubtedly. An organ in the square at this hour of the evening, singularly out of place.
Sir William looking round.
Well, well, well! Does no one stir?
Rose, under her breath.
Oh, don't stop it.
Clara goes out quickly. With a great show of activity, Arthur and De Foenix hurry across the room, and when there, do nothing. Sir William coming upon Rose and peering down at her.
What are ye upon the floor for, my dear? Have we no cheers?
To Miss Gower, producing his snuff-box.
Do we lack cheers here, Trafalgar?
Miss Gower going to Rose.
My dear Rose!
Raising her.
Come, this is quite out of place. Young ladies do not crouch and huddle upon the ground, do they, William?
Sir William taking snuff.
A moment ago I should have hazarded the opinion that they do not.
Clara returns. The organ music ceases abruptly. Clara coming to Sir William.
Charles was just running out to stop the organ when I reached the hall, Grandpa.
Ye'd surely no intention, Clara, of venturing yourself into the public street, the open square?
Clara faintly.
I meant only to wave at the man from the door.
Oh, Clara, that would hardly have been in place.
Sir William raising his hands.
In mercy's name, Trafalgar, what is befalling my household?
Miss Gower bursting into tears.
Oh, William!
Rose and Clara creep away and join the others. Miss Gower totters to Sir William and drops her head upon his breast.
Tut, 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 tut.
Miss Gower, between her sobs.
I know what is in your mind.
Ah.
Oh, my dear brother, be patient.
Patient?
Forgive me, I should have said hopeful. Be hopeful that I shall yet succeed in ameliorating the disturbing conditions which are affecting us so cruelly.
Ye never will, Trafalgar. I've tried.
Oh, do not despond already. I feel sure there are good ingredients in Rose's character.
Clinging to him.
In time, William, we shall shape her to be a fitting wife for a rash and unfortunate Arthur.
He shakes his head.
In time, William, in time.
Sir William soothing her.
Well, well, well. There. At least, my dear sister, I am perfectly aware that I possess in you the woman above all others whose example should compel such a transformation.
Miss Gower throwing her arms about his neck.
Oh, brother, what a compliment!
Tut, tut, tut. And now, before Charles sets the card table, don't you think we had better? Eh, Trafalgar?
Yes, our disagreeable duty. Let us discharge it.
Sir William takes snuff.
Rose dear, be seated.
To everybody.
The Vice-Chancellor has something to say to us. Let us all be seated.
There is consternation among the young people. All sit. Sir William peering about him.
Are ye seated?
Yes.
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 What I desire to say is this. When Miss Trelawny took up her residence here, it was thought proper, in the peculiar circumstances of the case, that you, Arthur,
pointing a finger at Arthur.
You.
Yes, sir.
That you should remove yourself to the establishment of your sister Clara and her husband, in Holly Street, round the corner.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Grandpa.
Certainly, Sir William.
Taking your food in this house, and spending other certain hours here, under the surveillance of your great aunt Trafalgar.
Yes, William.
This was considered to be a decorous, and towards Miss Trelawney, a highly respectful course to pursue.
Yes, sir.
Any other course would have been out of place.
And yet,
again extending a finger at Arthur,
what is this that is reported to me?
I don't know, sir.
I hear that ye have on several occasions, at night, after having quitted this house with Captain and Mrs. de Ferney, been seen on the other side of the way, your back against the railings, gazing up at Miss Trelawney's window, and that you have remained in that position for a considerable space of time. Is this true, sir?
Rose, boldly.
Yes, Sir William.
I venture to put a question to my grandson, Miss Trelawney.
Yes, sir, it is quite true.
Then, sir, let me acquaint you that these are not the manners, nor the practices, of a gentleman.
No, sir.
No, sir. They are the manners and the practices of a troubadour.
A troubadour in Cavendish Square? Quite out of place.
I'm very sorry, sir. I never looked at it in that light.
Pish!
But at the same time, sir, I dare say, of course I don't speak from precise knowledge, but I dare say there were a good many...
Good many what, sir?
A good many very respectable troubadours, sir.
Rose starting to her feet heroically and defiantly.
And what I wish to say, Sir William, is this. I wish to avow, to declare before the world, that Arthur and I have had many lengthy interviews while he has been stationed against those railings over there. I murmuring to him softly from my bedroom window, he responding in tremulous whispers.
Sir William is struggling to his feet.
You tell me such things?
All rise.
The square in which we have resided for years? Our neighbours?
Sir William shaking a trembling hand at Arthur.
The character of my house.
Again, I am extremely sorry, sir, but these are the only confidential conversations Rose and I now enjoy.
Sir William turning upon Clara and de Foenix.
And you, Captain de Ferney, an officer and a gentleman. And you, Clara. This could scarcely have been without your cognizance, without, perhaps, your approval.
Charles, in plush and powder and wearing luxuriant whiskers, enters, carrying 2 branch candlesticks with lighted candles.
The card table, Sir William?
Miss Gower agitatedly.
Yes, by all means, Charles. The card table as usual.
To Sir William.
A rubber will comfort you, soothe you.
Charles carries the candlesticks to the card table. Sir William and Miss Gower seat themselves upon a couch, she with her arm through his affectionately. Clara and de Foenix get behind the screen. Their scared faces are seen occasionally over the top of it. Charles brings the card table, opens it and arranges it, placing 4 chairs which he collects from different parts of the room round the table. Rose and Arthur talk in rapid undertones.
Infamous.
Be calm, Rose, dear, be calm.
Tyrannical, diabolical. I cannot endure it.
She throws herself into a chair. He stands behind her, apprehensively endeavoring to calm her. Arthur over her shoulder.
They mean well, dearest.
Rose hysterically.
Well,
but they are rather old-fashioned people.
Old-fashioned? They belong to the time when men and women were put to the torture. I am being tortured, mentally tortured.
They have not many more years in this world.
Nor I, at this rate, many more months. They are killing me, like Agnes in the Spectre of St. Ives. She expires in the 4th act, as I shall die in Cavendish Square, painfully. of no recognized disorder.
And anything we can do to make them happy.
To make the Vice-Chancellor happy? I won't try. I will not. He's a fiend, a vampire.
Oh, hush.
Rose snatching up Sir William's snuff-box, which he has left upon the table.
His snuff-box? I wish I could poison his snuff, as Lucrece Borgia would have done. She would have removed him within 2 hours of my arrival. I mean her arrival.
Opening the snuff-box and mimicking Sir William.
And here he sits and lectures me and dictates to me, to Miss Trelawny. I venture to put a question to my grandson, Miss Trelawny. Ha ha!
Taking a pinch of snuff thoughtlessly but vigorously.
Yeah, pish, have we no cheers? Do we lack cheers here, Trafalgar? Oh.
What have you done?
Rose in suspense, replacing the snuff-box.
The snuff?
Rose, dear.
Rose, putting her handkerchief to her nose and rising. Charles, having prepared the card table and arranged the candlesticks upon it, has withdrawn. Miss Gower and Sir William now rise.
The table is prepared, William. Arthur, I assume you would prefer to sit and contemplate Rose?
Thank you, Aunt.
Rose sneezes violently and is led away helplessly by Arthur. Miss Gower to Rose.
Oh, my dear child.
Looking round.
Where are Frederick and Clara?
Appearing from behind the screen, shamefacedly.
Here.
The intending players cut the pack and seat themselves. Sir William sits facing Captain de Foenix, Miss Gower on the right of the table, and Clara on the left. Arthur, while this is going on, to Rose.
Are you in pain, dearest Rose?
Agony.
Pinch your upper lip.
She sneezes twice loudly and sinks back upon the couch. Sir William, testily.
Shush, shush, shush. This is to be whist, I hope.
Rose, Rose. Young ladies do not sneeze quite so continuously.
De Foenix is dealing. Sir William with gusto.
I will thank you, Captain de Foenix, to exercise your intelligence this evening to its furthest limit.
I'll try, sir.
Last night, sir.
Poor Frederick had toothache last night, Grandpa.
Whist is whist, Clara, and toothache is toothache. We will endeavor to keep the two things distinct, if you please.
Your interruption was heartily in place, Clara dear. Ah.
Hey, what?
A misdeal.
Clara, faintly.
Oh, Frederick.
Sir William, partly rising.
Captain de Foenix.
I'm frightfully grieved, sir.
The cards are redealt by Miss Gower. Rose now gives way to a violent paroxysm of sneezing. Sir William rises.
William!
The players rise. Sir William to the players.
Is this whist, may I ask?
They sit. Sir William standing.
Miss Trelawny.
Rose weakly.
I think I had better, what do you call it, withdraw for a few moments.
Sir William sitting again.
Do so.
Rose disappears. Arthur is leaving the room with her. Miss Gower sharply.
Arthur, where are you going?
Arthur returning promptly.
I beg your pardon, Aunt.
Really, Arthur?
Sir William rapping upon the table.
Tish, tish, tish.
Forgive me, William.
They play. Sir William intent upon his cards.
My snuff-box, Arthur. Be so obliging as to search for it.
Arthur brightly.
I'll bring it to you, sir. It is on the...
Keep your voice down, sir. We are playing.
Emphatically throwing down a card as fourth player.
Whist. Mine.
Miss Gower picking up the trick.
No, William.
Sir William glaring.
No.
Clara played a trump.
Yes, sir. Clara played a trump. The 7.
I will not trouble you, Captain de Foenix, to echo Miss Gower's information.
Very sorry, sir.
Miss Gower gently.
It was a little out of place, Frederick.
Shush. Whist.
Arthur is now on Sir William's right with the snuff-box.
Hey, what?
Taking the snuff-box from Arthur.
Oh, thank ye. Much obliged, much obliged.
Arthur walks away and picks up a book. Sir William turns in his chair, watching Arthur.
You to play, William.
A pause.
William, dear?
She also turns, following the direction of his gaze. Laying down his cards, Sir William leaves the card table and goes over to Arthur slowly. Those at the card table look on apprehensively. Sir William, in a queer voice.
Arthur.
Arthur, shutting his book.
Excuse me, grandfather.
You're a troublesome young man, Arthur.
I don't mean to be one, sir.
As your poor father was before ye. And if you are fool enough to marry, and to beget children, doubtless your son will follow the same course.
Taking snuff.
Yes, but I shall be dead and gone by that time, it's likely. Pish! I shall be sitting in the court above by that time.
From the adjoining room comes the sound of Rose's voice singing Ever of Thee to the piano. There is great consternation at the card table. Arthur is moving towards the folding doors. Sir William detains him.
No, let her go on, I beg. Let her continue.
Returning to the card table with deadly calmness.
We will suspend our game while this young lady performs her operas.
Miss Gower rising and taking his arm.
William!
Sir William in the same tone.
I fear this is no longer a comfortable home for ye, Trafalgar. No longer the home for a gentlewoman. I apprehend that in these days my house approaches somewhat closely to a pandemonium.
Suddenly taking up the cards in a fury and flinging them across the room.
And this is whist! Whist!
Clara and De Foenix rise and stand together. Arthur pushes open the upper part of the folding doors.
Rose, stop! Rose!
The song ceases and Rose appears. Rose at the folding doors.
Did anyone call?
You have upset my grandfather.
Miss Trelawney, how dare you do anything so out of place?
There's a piano in there, Miss Gower.
You are acquainted with the rule of this household. No music when the Vice-Chancellor is within doors.
But there are so many rules. One of them is that you may not sneeze.
Ha! You must never answer.
No, that's another rule.
Oh, for shame.
You see, Aunt, Rose is young, and you make no allowance for her. Give her no chance.
Great heaven! What is this you are charging me with?
I don't think the rules of this house are fair to Rose. Oh, I must say it. They are horribly unfair.
Miss Gower clinging to Sir William.
Brother!
Trafalgar!
Putting her aside and advancing to Arthur.
Oh, indeed, sir. And so you deliberately accuse your great aunt of acting towards ye and Miss Trelawney mala fide.
Grandfather, what I intended to...
I will afford ye the opportunity of explaining what ye intended to convey downstairs at once in the library.
A general shudder.
Oblige me by following me, sir.
To Clara and De Foenix.
Captain de Ferny, I see no prospect of any further social relaxation this evening. You and Clara will do me the favor of attending in the hall, in readiness to take this young man back to Holy Street.
Giving his arm to Miss Gower.
My dear sister.
To Arthur.
Now, sir.
Sir William and Miss Gower go out. Arthur comes to Rose and kisses her.
Good night, dearest. Oh, good night, oh, Rose.
Sir William outside the door.
Mr. Arthur Gower?
I'm coming, sir.
He goes out quickly. De Foenix approaching Rose and taking her hand sympathetically.
Really?
Yes, I know what you would say. Thank you, Captain Fred.
Clara, embracing Rose.
Never mind. We will continue to let Arthur out at night, as usual. I am a married woman.
Joining De Foenix.
And a married woman will turn, if you tread upon her often enough.
De Foenix and Clara depart. Rose pacing the room, shaking her hands in the air desperately. The upper part of the folding doors opens, and Charles appears. Charles mysteriously.
Miss Rose.
What?
Charles advancing.
I see Sir William and the rest descend the stairs. I have been awaiting the chance of handing you this, Miss Rose.
He produces a dirty scrap of paper, wet and limp, with writing upon it, and gives it to her. Rose handling it daintily.
Oh, it's damp.
Yes, miss. A little gentle shower have been taking place outside. 8 spots, cook says.
Rose reading.
Ah, from some of my friends.
Charles behind his hand.
Professional, Miss Rose?
Rose, intent upon the note.
Yes, yes.
I was reprimanding the organ, miss, when I observed them lolling against the square railings examining our premises, and they ventured forth to beckon me. An extremely affable party, miss.
Hiding his face.
Oh, one of them caused me to laugh.
Rose excitedly, referring to the note.
They want to speak to me, to impart something to me of an important nature. Oh, Charles, I know not what to do.
Charles languishingly.
Whatever friends may loll against them railings opposite, Miss Rose, you have one true friend in this house. Charles Gibbons.
Thank you, Charles. Mr. Briggs, the butler, is sleeping out tonight, isn't he?
Yes, miss. He have leave to sleep at his sister's. I happen to know he have gone to Cremorne.
Then, when Sir William and Miss Gower have retired, do you think you could let me go forth and wait at the front door while I run across and grant my friends a hurried interview?
Certainly, miss.
If it reached the ears of Sir William or Miss Gower, you would lose your place, Charles.
Charles haughtily.
I'm aware, miss, but Sir William was extremely rude to me during dinner over that mishap to the entree.
A bell rings violently.
Sir William!
He goes out. The rain is heard pattering against the window panes. Rose goes from one window to another, looking out. It is now almost black outside the windows. Rose discovering her friends.
Ah, yes, yes. Ah.
She snatches an antimacassar from a chair and, jumping onto the couch, waves it frantically to those outside.
Dears, the darlings, the faithful creatures.
Listening.
Oh.
She descends in a hurry and flings the antimacassar under the couch as Miss Gower enters. At the same moment there is a vivid flash of lightning. Miss Gower startled.
Oh, how dreadful!
To Rose, frigidly.
The Vice-Chancellor has felt the few words he has addressed to Arthur and has retired for the night.
There is a roll of thunder. Rose alarmed, Miss Gower clings to a chair.
Mercy on us! Go to bed, child, directly. We will all go to our beds, hoping to awake tomorrow in a meeker and more submissive spirit.
Kissing Rose upon the brow.
Good night.
Another flash of lightning.
Oh! Don't omit to say your prayers, Rose, and in a simple manner. I always fear that, from your peculiar training, you may declaim them. That is so out of place. Oh!
Another roll of thunder. Rose goes across the room, meeting Charles, who enters carrying a lantern. They exchange significant glances, and she disappears. Charles coming to Miss Gower.
I am now at liberty to accompany you round the house, ma'am.
A flash of lightning.
Ah!
Her hand to her heart.
Thank you, Charles. But tonight I must ask you to see that everything is secure, alone. This storm, so very seasonable, but from girlhood I could never...
A roll of thunder.
Oh, good night.
She flutters away. The rain beats still more violently upon the window panes. Charles, glancing at the window.
Phew! Great heavens!
He is dropping the curtains at the window when Rose appears at the folding doors.
Charles.
Miss?
Rose coming into the room distractedly.
Miss Gower has gone to bed.
Yes, miss. Oh!
A flash of lightning.
Oh, my friends, my poor friends.
And Mr. Briggs at Cremorne. Really, I should hardly advise you to venture out, miss.
Out? No. Oh, but get them in.
In, Miss Rose. Indoors.
Under cover.
A roll of thunder.
Oh.
Wringing her hands.
They're my friends. Is it a rule that I'm never to see a friend? That I mayn't even give a friend shelter in a violent storm?
To Charles.
Are you the only one up?
I believe so, miss. Anyhow, the women servants is quite under my control.
Then tell my friends to be deathly quiet and to creep, to tiptoe.
The rain strikes the window again. She picks up the lantern which Charles has deposited upon the floor and gives it to him.
Make haste, I'll draw the curtains.
He hurries out. She goes from window to window, dropping the curtains, talking to herself excitedly as she does so.
My friends, my own friends, I'm not to sneeze in this house, nor to sing, nor breathe next. Wretches, oh, my wretches.
Blowing out the candles and removing the candlesticks to the table, singing under her breath wildly.
Ever of thee I'm fondly dreaming.
Mimicking Sir William again.
What are ye upon the floor for, my dear? Have we no cheers? Do we lack cheers here, Trafalgar?
Charles returns. Charles to those who follow him.
Hush!
To Rose.
I discovered them clustered in the doorway.
There is a final peal of thunder as Avonia, Gadd, Colpoys, and Tom Wrench enter, somewhat diffidently. They are apparently soaked to their skins, and are altogether in a deplorable condition. Avonia alone has an umbrella, which she allows to drip upon the carpet, but her dress and petticoats are bedraggled, her finery limp, her hair lank and loose.
Avonia!
Avonia coming to her and embracing her fervently.
Oh, ducky, ducky, ducky! Oh, but what a storm!
Hush, how wet you are.
Shaking hands with Gadd.
Ferdinand.
Crossing to Colpoys and shaking hands with him.
Augustus.
Shaking hands with Tom.
Tom Wrench.
Avonia to Charles.
Be so kind as to put my umbrella on the landing, will you? Oh, thank you very much, I'm sure.
Charles withdraws with the umbrella. Gadd and Colpoys shake the rain from their hats onto the carpet and furniture. Tom quietly to Rose.
It's a shame to come down on you in this way, but they would do it, and I thought I'd better stick to him.
Gadd, who is a little flushed and unsteady.
Ha! I shall remember this accursed evening.
Oh, Ferdy!
Hush, you must be quiet. Everybody has gone to bed, and I'm not sure I'm allowed to receive visitors.
Oh!
Then we are intruders?
I mean, such late visitors.
Colpoys has taken off his coat and is shaking it vigorously.
Oh, stop it, Augustus. Ain't I wet enough?
To Rose.
Yes, it is late-ish, but I so wanted to inform you. Here.
Bringing Gadd forward.
Allow me to introduce my husband.
Oh, no.
Yes. Shh, shh. I forgot.
To Gadd.
Oh, darling Ferdy, you're positively soaked.
To Rose.
Do let him take his coat off, like Gussie.
Gadd jealously.
Vaunia, not so much of the Gussie.
There you are. Flying out again, as if Mr. Colpoys wasn't an old friend.
Old friend or no old friend?
Rose diplomatically.
Certainly, take your coat off, Ferdinand.
Gadd joins Colpoys. They spread out their coats upon the couch. Rose feeling Tom's coat sleeve.
And you?
Tom, after glancing at the others.
No, thank you.
Avonia sitting.
Yes, dearie. Ferdy and I were married yesterday.
Rose sitting.
Yesterday.
Yesterday morning. We're on a honeymoon now. You know, the wells shut a fortnight after you left us, and neither Ferdy nor me could fix anything, just for the present, elsewhere. And as we hadn't put by during the season, you know, it never struck us to put by during the season, we thought we'd get married.
Oh, yes.
You see, A man and his wife can live almost on what keeps one, rent and caterer. And so, being deeply attached, as I tell you, we went off to church and did the deed. Oh, it will be such a save.
Looking up at Gadd coyly.
Oh, Ferdy.
Gadd laying his hand upon her head dreamily.
Yes, child, I confess I love you.
Colpoys behind Rose, imitating Gadd.
Child, I confess I adore you.
Tom taking Colpoys by the arm and swinging him away from Rose.
Enough of that, Colpoys.
What?
Rose rising.
Hush.
Tom under his breath.
If you've never learned how to behave.
Don't you teach behaviour, sir, to a gentleman who plays a superior line of business to yourself.
Muttering.
'Pon my soul. Rum start.
Avonia going to Rose.
Of course, I ought to have written to you, dear, properly. But you remember the weeks it takes me to write a letter.
Gadd sits in the chair Avonia has just quitted. She returns and seats herself upon his knee.
And so I said to Ferdy, over tea, Ferdy, let's spend a bit of our honeymoon in, doing the West End thoroughly, and going and seeing where Rose Trelawny lives. And we thought it only nice and polite to invite Tom Wrench and Gussie.
Vania, much less of the Gussie.
Avonia kissing Gadd.
Jealous boy.
Beaming.
Oh, and we have done the West End thoroughly. There, I've never done the West End so thoroughly in my life. And when we got outside your house, I couldn't resist.
Her hand on Gadd's shirt sleeve.
Oh, gracious. I'm sure you'll catch your death, my darling.
I think I can get him some wine.
To Gadd.
Will you take some wine, Ferdinand?
Gadd rises, nearly upsetting Avonia.
Ferdy?
I thank you.
With a wave of the hand.
Anything, anything.
Avonia to Rose.
Anything that goes with stout, dear.
Rose at the door, turning to them.
Vonia, boys, be very still.
Trust us.
Rose tiptoes out. Colpoys is now at the card table, cutting a pack of cards which remains there. Colpoys to Gadd.
Gadd, I'll see you for pennies.
Gadd loftily.
Done, sir, with you.
They seat themselves at the table and cut for coppers. Tom is walking about, surveying the room. Avonia taking off her hat and wiping it with her handkerchief.
Well, Thomas, what do you think of it?
This is the kind of chamber I want for the first act of my comedy.
Oh, Lord, your head's continually running on your comedy, half this blessed evening.
I tell you, I won't have doors stuck here, there, and everywhere. No, nor windows in all sorts of impossible places.
Oh, really? Well, when you do get your play accepted, mind you see that Mr. Manager gives you exactly what you ask for, won't you?
You need to be satirical if you are wet. Yes, I will.
Pointing to the left.
Windows on the one side.
Pointing to the right.
Doors on the other. Just where they should be architecturally. And locks on the doors. Real locks to work. And handles to turn.
Rubbing his hands together gleefully.
Ha ha! You wait. Wait.
Rose re-enters with a plate of biscuits in her hand, followed by Charles, who carries a decanter of sherry and some wine glasses.
Here, Charles.
Charles places the decanter and the glasses on the table. Gadd, whose luck has been against him, throwing himself sulkily onto the couch.
Bah, I'll risk no further stake.
Just because you lose 7p in coppers, you go on like this?
Charles, turning from the table, faces Colpoys. Colpoys tearing his hair and glaring at Charles wildly.
Ah, I am ruined. I have lost my all. My children are beggars.
Ho, ho, ho. Hehehe.
Hush, hush.
Charles goes out laughing. Rose to everybody.
Sherry?
Gadd rising.
Sherry.
Avonia, Colpoys, and Gadd gather round the table and help themselves to sherry and biscuits. Rose to Tom.
Tom, won't you?
Tom watching Gadd anxiously.
No, thank you. The fact is, we have already partaken of refreshments once or twice during the evening.
Colpoys and Avonia, each carrying a glass of wine and munching a biscuit, go to the couch where they sit. Gadd pouring out sherry, singing.
And let me the cannikin clink clink.
Rose coming to him.
Be quiet, Gadd.
Colpoys raising his glass.
The bride.
Rose turning, kissing her hand to Avonia.
Yes, yes.
Gadd hands Rose his glass. She puts her lips to it.
The bride.
She returns the glass to Gadd. Gadd sitting.
My bride.
Tom from behind the table, unperceived, takes the decanter and hides it under the table, then sits. Gadd, missing the decanter, contents himself with the biscuits.
Well, Rose, my darling, we've been talking about nothing but ourselves. How are you getting along here?
Getting along? Oh, I don't fancy I'm getting along very well, thank you.
Not.
Gadd, his mouth full of biscuit.
Not.
Rose sitting by the card table.
No, boys. No, Vonia. The truth is, it isn't as nice as you'd think it. I suppose the profession had its drawbacks. Mother used to say so, but...
Raising her arms.
One could fly. Yes, in Brighton Crescent one was a dirty little London sparrow, perhaps. But here, in this grand square... Oh, it's the story of the caged bird over again.
A lovebird, though.
Poor Arthur. Yes, he's a dear.
Rising.
But the Gowers. The old Gowers. The Gowers. The Gowers.
She paces the room, beating her hands together. In her excitement she ceases to whisper, and gradually becomes loud and voluble. The others, following her lead, chatter noisily, except Tom, who sits thoughtfully looking before him.
The ancient Gowers, the venerable Gowers.
You mean the grandfather?
And the aunt, the great-aunt, the great bore of a great-aunt. The very mention of him makes something go tap, 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 tap at the top of my head.
Oh, I am sorry to hear this. Well, upon my word.
Would you believe it? Vonia, boys, you'll never believe it. I mayn't walk out with Arthur alone, nor see him here alone. I mayn't sing, no, nor sneeze even.
Not sing or sneeze?
Colpoys indignantly.
Not sneeze?
No, nor sit on the floor. The floor.
Why, when we shared rooms together, you were always on the floor.
Gadd producing a pipe and knocking out the ashes on the heel of his boot.
In heaven's name, what kind of house can this be?
I wouldn't stand it. Would you, Ferdinand?
Gadd loading his pipe.
Gadd, no.
Avonia to Colpoys.
Would you, Gus, dear?
Gadd under his breath.
Here, not so much of the gust, dear.
Avonia to Colpoys.
Would you?
Nah, I'm blessed if I would, my darling.
Gadd, his pipe in his mouth.
Mr. Colpoys, less of the darling.
Avonia rising.
Rose, don't you put up with it.
Striking the top of the card table vigorously.
I say, don't you stand it.
Embracing Rose.
You're an independent girl, dear. They came to you, these people, not you to them, remember.
Rose sitting on the couch.
What can I do? I can't do anything.
Can't you?
Coming to Gadd.
Ferdinand, advise her. You tell her how to...
Gadd, who has risen.
Miss Bunn, Mrs. Gadd, you have been all over Mr. Colpoys this evening, ever since we...
Avonia angrily pushing him back into his chair.
Oh, don't be a silly.
Madam.
Avonia returning to Colpoys.
Gus, Ferdinand's foolish. Come and talk to Rose and advise her, there's a dear boy.
Colpoys rises. She takes his arm to lead him to Rose. At that moment Gadd advances to Colpoys and slaps his face violently.
Hey!
Miserable viper.
The two men close. Tom runs to separate them. Rose rises with a cry of terror. There is a struggle and general uproar. The card table is overturned with a crash, and Avonia utters a long and piercing shriek. Then the house bells are heard ringing violently.
Oh.
The combatants part. All look scared. Rose at the door, listening.
They are moving. Coming. Turn out the...
She turns out the light at the table. The room is in half light as Sir William enters, cautiously, closely followed by Miss Gower. They are both in dressing gowns and slippers. Sir William carries a thick stick and his bedroom candle. Rose is standing by a chair. Gadd, Avonia, Colpoys, and Tom are together.
Miss Trelawny?
Rose!
Running behind the screen.
Men!
Who are these people?
Rose advancing a step or two.
Some friends of mine who used to be at the Wells have called upon me to inquire how I am getting on.
Arthur enters quickly, looking round.
Rose.
Sir William, turning upon him.
How come you're here?
I was outside the house. Charles let me in, knowing something was wrong.
Sir William peering into his face.
Troubadouring?
Troubadouring, yes, sir. Rose, what is this?
Sir William fiercely.
No, sir. This is my affair.
Placing his candlestick on the table.
Stand aside.
Raising his stick furiously.
Stand aside.
Arthur moves to the right. Miss Gower over the screen.
William!
Eh?
Your ankles.
Sir William adjusting his dressing gown.
I beg your pardon.
To Arthur.
Yes, I can answer your question.
Pointing his stick first at Rose, then at the group.
Some friends of that young woman's, connected with the playhouse, have favored us with a visit for the purpose of ascertaining how she is getting on.
Touching Gadd's pipe, which is lying at his feet with the end of his stick.
A filthy tobacco pipe. To whom does it belong? Whose is it?
Rose picks it up and passes it to Gadd bravely.
It belongs to one of my friends.
Sir William taking Gadd's empty wineglass and holding it to his nose.
Phew, yes. In brief, a drunken debauch.
To the group.
So ye see, gentlemen.
To Avonia.
And you, madam.
To Arthur.
And you, sir. You see, all of ye.
Sinking into a chair and coughing from exhaustion.
Exactly how Miss Trelawny is getting on.
Miss Gower over the screen.
William!
What is it?
Your ankles.
Sir William leaping to his feet in a frenzy.
Bah!
Oh, they seem so out of place.
Sir William flourishing his stick to the group down left.
Be gone! A set of garish, dissolute gypsies! Be gone!
Gadd, Avonia, Colpoys, and Wrench gather, the men hastily putting on their coats, etc.
Where's my umbrella?
A hand with my coat here.
'Pon my soul. London artists.
We don't want to remain where we're not heartily welcome, I can assure everybody.
Open windows. Let in the air.
Avonia to Rose, who is standing above the wreck of the card table.
Goodbye, my dear.
No, Avonia. Oh, don't leave me behind you.
Rose.
Oh, I'm very sorry, Arthur.
To Sir William.
Indeed, I am very sorry, Sir William. But you are right. Gypsies, gypsies.
To Arthur.
Yes, Arthur, if you were a gypsy, as I am, as these friends of mine are, we might be happy together. But I've seen enough of your life, my dear boy, to know that I'm no wife for you. I should only be wretched, and I would make you wretched. And in the end, when it arrived, as it very soon would be much as it is tonight.
Arthur distractedly.
You'll let me see you? Talk to you tomorrow, Rose?
No, never.
Sir William sharply.
You mean that?
Rose, facing him.
Oh, don't be afraid. I give you my word.
Sir William gripping her hand.
Thank ye. Thank ye.
Tom quietly to Arthur.
Mr. Gower, come and see me tomorrow.
He moves away to the door. Rose turning to Avonia, Gadd, and Colpoys.
I'm ready.
Miss Gower coming from behind the screen to the back of the couch.
Not tonight, child, not tonight. Where will you go?
Avonia holding Rose.
To her old quarters in Brighton Crescent. Send her things after her, if you please.
And then?
Then, back to the Wells again, Miss Gower. Back to the Wells.
End of Act 2. Act 3 of Trelawny of the Wells by Arthur Wing PINERO. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The scene represents an apartment on the second floor of Mrs. Mossop's house. The room is of a humbler character than that shown in the first act, but though shabby, it is neat. On the right is a door, outside which is supposed to be the landing. In the wall at the back is another door, presumably admitting to a further chamber. Down left there is a fireplace, with a fire burning, and over the mantelpiece a mirror. In the left-hand corner of the room is a small bedstead with a tidily made bed, which can be hidden by a pair of curtains of some common and faded material, hanging from a cord slung from wall to wall. At the foot of the bedstead stands a large theatrical dress-basket. On the wall by the head of the bed are some pegs upon which hang a skirt or two and other articles of attire. On the right, against the back wall, there is a chest of drawers, the top of which is used as a washstand. In front of this is a small screen, and close by there are some more pegs with things hanging upon them. On the right wall above the sofa is a hanging bookcase with a few books. A small circular table with a somewhat shabby cover upon it stands on the left. The walls are papered, the doors painted stone color. An old felt carpet is on the floor. The light is that of morning. A fire is burning in the grate. Mrs. Mossop, now dressed in a workaday gown, has just finished making the bed. There's a knock at the center door. Avonia from the adjoining room.
Rose!
Mrs. Mossop giving a final touch to the quilt.
Eh?
Is Miss Trelawny in her room?
No, Mrs. Gadd. She's at rehearsal.
Oh.
Mrs. Mossop draws the curtains, hiding the bed from view. Avonia enters by the door on the right, in a morning wrapper which has seen its best days. She carries a pair of curling tongs, and her hair is evidently in process of being dressed in ringlets.
Of course she is. I forgot. There's a call for the Peddler of Marseille. Thank God I'm not in it. I'm a great guerrilla chief. I'm a robber and a thief. I can neither kill a foe or prig a pocket handkerchief.
Mrs. Mossop dusting the ornaments on the mantelpiece.
Bless your heart. You're very gay this morning.
It's the pantomime. I'm always stark mad as the pantomime approaches. I don't grudge letting the rest of the company have their fling at other times, but with the panto comes my turn.
Throwing herself full length upon the sofa gleefully.
The turn of Avonia Bunn.
With a change of tone.
I hope Miss Trelawny won't take a walk up to Highbury or anywhere after rehearsal. I want to borrow her gilt belt. My dress has arrived.
Mrs. Mossop much interested.
No. Has it?
Yes. Mrs. Burroughs is coming down from the theatre at 12:30 to see me in it. Any kind of villainy cometh natural to me. So it endeth with a combat and a 1, 2, 3.
Mrs. Mossop surveying the room.
Well, that's as cheerful as I can make things look. Poor dear.
Avonia taking a look round seriously.
It's pretty bright. If it wasn't for the idea of Rose Trelawny having to economize.
Ah.
Avonia rising.
That's what I can't swallow.
Sticking her irons in the fire angrily.
1 room! And on the 2nd floor!
Turning to Mrs. Mossop.
Of course, Gadd and me are 1 room people too, and on the same floor. But then Gadd is so popular out of the theatre, Mrs. Mossop. He's obliged to spend such a load of money at the Clown.
Mrs. Mossop, who has been dusting the bookcase, coming to the table.
Mrs. Gadd, dearie, I'm sure I'm not in the least inquisitive. No one could accuse me of it. But I should like to know just one thing.
Avonia, testing her irons upon a sheet of paper, which she takes from the table.
What's that?
Why have they been and cut down Miss Trelawney's salary at the Wells?
Avonia, hesitatingly.
Everybody's chattering about it. You could get it here easily enough.
Oh, I dare say.
So, I don't mind. Oh, poor Rose. They tell her she can't act now, Mrs. Mossop.
Can't act?
Oh, no, dear old girl. Oh, she's lost it. It's gone from her, the trick of it.
Tom enters by the door on the right, carrying a table cover of a bright pattern. Tom, coming upon Mrs. Mossop, disconcerted.
Oh.
My first floor table cover?
Yes.
Exchanging the table covers.
I thought, as the Telfers have departed, and as their late sitting room is at present vacant, that Miss Trelawney might enjoy the benefit, eh?
Mrs. Mossop, snatching up the old table cover.
Well, I never.
She goes out. Avonia, curling her hair at the mirror over the mantelpiece.
I say, Tom, I wonder if I've done wrong.
It all depends upon whether you've had the chance.
I've told Mrs. Mossop the reason they've reduced Rose's salary.
You needn't.
Oh, she only had to ask any other member of the company.
To have found one who could have kept silent.
Avonia, remorsefully.
Oh, I could burn myself.
Besides, it isn't true.
What?
That Rose Trelawney is no longer up to her work.
Avonia, sadly.
Oh, Tom!
It isn't the fact, I say.
Isn't it the fact that ever since Rose returned from Cavendish Square...
She has been reserved, subdued, ladylike.
She was always ladylike.
I'm aware of that.
Well then, what do you mean by...
Tom, in a rage, turning away.
Ah!
Avonia, heating her irons again.
The idea!
Tom, cooling down.
She was always a ladylike actress, on the stage and off it. But now she has developed into a...
At a loss.
Into a...
Avonia, scornfully.
Huh!
Into a ladylike human being. These fools at the Wells can't act, can't she? No, she can no longer spout. She can no longer ladle the vapoured trash, the turgid rhodomontade.
Avonia, doubtfully.
You'd better be careful of your language, wench.
Tom, with a twinkle in his eye, mopping his brow.
You're a married woman, Vonia.
Avonia, holding her irons to her cheek, modestly.
I know, but still.
Yes, deep down in the well of that girl's nature there has been lying a little bright, clear pool of genuine refinement, girlish simplicity. And now the bucket has been lowered by love. Experience has turned the handle, and up comes a crystal to the top, pure and sparkling. Why, her broken engagement to poor young Gower has really been the making of her. It has transformed her. Can't act, can't she? How she would play Dora in my comedy.
Oh, that comedy!
How she would murmur those love scenes.
Murder?
Murmur.
Partly to himself.
Do you know, Vonia, I had Rose in mind when I imagined Dora.
You astonish me.
Tom sitting.
And Arthur Gower when I wrote the character of Gerald, Dora's lover.
In a low voice.
Gerald and Dora. Rose and Arthur. Gerald and Dora.
Suddenly.
Vonia!
Avonia singeing her hair.
Oh, Lord! What now?
I wish you could keep a secret.
Why can't I?
Haven't you just been gossiping with Mother Mossop?
Avonia behind his chair breathlessly, her eyes bolting.
A secret, Tom?
Tom nodding.
I should like to share it with you because you are fond of her too.
Oh.
And because the possession of it is worrying me. But there, I can't trust you.
Mr. Wrench!
No, you're a warm-hearted woman, Vonia, but you're a sieve.
Avonia going down upon her knees beside him.
I swear, by all my hopes, Tom Wrench, of hitting him as Prince Charming in the coming pantomime, I swear I will not divulge, leave alone, tell a living soul, any secret you may entrust to me, or let me know of, concerning Rose Trelawny of the Wells. Amen.
Tom in her ear.
Vonia, I know where Arthur Gower is.
Is? Isn't he still in London?
Tom producing a letter mysteriously.
No. When Rose stuck to her refusal to see him, listen, mind, not a word.
By all my hopes.
Tom checking her.
All right.
Reading.
Theatre Royal, Bristol, Friday.
Theatre Royal?
Be quiet.
Reading.
My dear Mr. Wrench, a whole week, and not a line from you to tell me how Miss Trelawney is. When you are silent, I am sleepless at night, and a haggard wretch during the day. Young Mr. Kirby, our walking gentleman, has been unwell, and the management has given me temporarily some of his business to play.
Arthur Gower?
Will you?
Reading.
Last night I was allowed to appear as careless in the school for scandal. Miss Mason, the Lady Teazle, complimented me, but the men said I lacked vigour. Ah, the old cry. And so this morning I am greatly depressed. But I will still persevere, as long as you can assure me that no presuming fellow is paying attention to Miss Trelawney. Oh, how badly she treated me.
Avonia following the reading of the letter.
How badly she treated me.
I will never forgive her, only love her.
Only love her?
Only love her, and hope I may some day become a great actor, and, like herself, a gypsy. Yours very gratefully, Arthur Gordon.
In the profession?
Bolted from Cavendish Square. Went down to Bristol.
How did he manage it all?
Tom taps his breast proudly.
But isn't Rose to be told? Why shouldn't she be told?
She has hurt the boy, stung him to the quick, and he's proud.
But she loves him now that she believes he has forgotten her. She only half loved him before. She loves him.
Serve her right.
Oh, Tom, is she never to know?
Tom folding the letter carefully.
Some day, when he begins to make strides.
Strides? He's nothing but general utility at present.
Tom putting the letter in his pocket.
No.
And how long have you been that?
10 years.
Avonia with a little screech.
She ought to be told.
Tom seizing her wrist.
Woman, you won't.
Avonia raising her disengaged hand.
By all my hopes of hitting him.
All right, I believe you.
Listening.
Shh.
They rise and separate, he moving to the fire, she to the right, as Rose enters. Rose is now a grave, dignified, somewhat dreamy young woman. Rose looking from Tom to Avonia.
Ah?
Good morning.
Rose kissing Avonia.
Visitors.
My fire's so
Good
black.
morning.
Showing her irons.
I thought you wouldn't mind.
Rose removing her gloves.
Of course not.
Seeing the table cover.
Oh.
Mrs. Mossop asked me to bring that upstairs. It was in the Telfer's room, you know, and she fancied...
How good of her. Thanks, Tom.
Taking off her hat and mantle.
Poor Mr. and Mrs. Telfer. They still wander mournfully about the Wells. They can get nothing to do.
Carrying her hat and umbrella, she disappears through the curtains. Tom to Avonia in a whisper across the room.
The Telfers.
Eh?
She's been giving him money.
Yes.
Damn.
Rose reappearing.
What are you saying about me?
I was wondering whether you'd lend me that belt you bought for Ophelia to wear during the first 2 or 3 weeks of the pantomime?
Certainly, Avonia, to wear throughout.
Avonia embracing her.
Oh, no, it's too good. I'd rather fake one for the rest of the time.
Looking into her face.
What's the matter?
I will make you a present of the belt, Avonia, if you will accept it. I bought it when I came back to the Wells, thinking everything would go on as before. But it's of no use. They tell me I cannot act effectively any longer.
Tom indignantly.
Effectively?
First, as you know, they reduced my salary.
Tom and Avonia with clenched hands.
Yes?
And now, this morning...
Sitting.
You can guess.
Yes?
Avonia hoarsely.
Got your notice?
Yes.
Oh.
Rose, after a little pause.
Poor mother. I hope she doesn't see.
Overwhelmed, Avonia and Tom sit.
I was running through Blanche, my old part in The Peddler in Marseille, when Mr. Burroughs spoke to me. It is true, I was doing it tamely, but it is such nonsense.
Hear, hear.
And then that poor little song I used to sing on the bridge.
Avonia singing softly.
Ever of thee I'm fondly dreaming, thy gentle voice my spirit
Thy gentle voice.
I told Mr. Burroughs I should cut it out. So ridiculously inappropriate.
And that did it?
Rose smiling at him.
That did it.
Avonia kneeling beside her and embracing her tearfully.
My ducky! Oh, but there are other theatres beside the Wells.
For me, only where the same trash is acted.
Avonia with a sob.
But a few months ago you liked your work.
Yes.
Dreamily.
And then I went to Cavendish Square, engaged to Arthur.
Tom rises and leans upon the mantelpiece, looking into the fire.
How badly I behaved in Cavendish Square. How unlike a young lady. What if the old folks were overbearing and tyrannical? Arthur could be gentle with them. They have not many more years in this world, he said, dear boy. And anything we can do to make them happy. And what did I do? There was a chance for me to be patient and womanly. And I proved to them that I was nothing but an actress.
Avonia rising, hurt but still tearful.
Oh, it doesn't follow, because one is a...
Rose rising.
Yes, Vonia, it does. We are only dolls, partly human, with mechanical limbs that will fall into stagey postures and heads stuffed with sayings out of rubbishy plays. It isn't the world we live in, merely a world. Such a queer little one. I was less than a month in Cavendish Square, and very few people came there, but they were real people, real. For a month, I lost the smell of gas and oranges, and the hurry and noise, and the dirt, and the slang, and the clownish joking at the Wells. I didn't realize at the time the change that was going on in me. I didn't realize it till I came back. And then, by degrees, I discovered what had happened.
Tom is now near her. She takes his hand and drops her head upon Avonia's shoulder wearily.
Oh, Tom. Oh, Avonia.
From the next room comes the sound of the throwing about of heavy objects, and of Gadd's voice uttering loud imprecations. Alarmed.
Oh.
Avonia listening attentively.
Sounds like Ferdy.
She goes to the center door at the keyhole.
Ferdy! Ain't you well, darling?
Gadd on the other side of the door.
Avonia!
I'm in Miss Trelawney's room.
Ah.
Avonia to Rose and Tom.
Now, what's put Ferdy out?
Gadd enters with a wild look.
Ferdinand!
Anything wrong, Gadd?
Wrong? Wrong?
Sitting.
What do you think?
Tell us.
I have been asked to appear in the pantomime.
Avonia shocked.
Oh, Ferdy! You!
I, a serious actor, if ever there was one, a poetic actor.
What part, Ferdy?
The insult, the bitter insult, the gross indignity.
What part, Ferdy?
I have not been seen in pantomime for years, not since I shook the dust of the T.R. Stockton from my feet.
Ferdy, what part?
I simply looked at Burroughs when he preferred his request and swept from the theatre.
What part, Ferdy?
A part, too, which is seen for a moment at the opening of the pantomime, and not again till it's closed.
Ferdy?
Eh?
What part?
A character called the Demon of Discontent.
Rose turns away to the fireplace. Tom curls himself up on the sofa and is seen to shake with laughter. Avonia walking about indignantly.
Oh!
Returning to Gadd.
Oh, it's a rotten part. Rose, dear, I assure you, as artist to artist, that part is absolutely rotten.
To Gadd.
You won't play it, darling.
Gadd rising.
Play it? I would see the Wells in ashes first.
We shall lose our engagements, Ferdy. I know, Burrows. We shall be out, both of us.
Of course we shall. Do you think I have not counted the cost?
Avonia putting her hand in his.
I don't mind, dear. For the sake of your position.
Struck by a sudden thought.
Oh!
What?
There now. We haven't put by.
There's a knock at the door.
Who's that?
Colpoys outside the door.
Is Dad here, Miss Trelawney?
Yes.
I want to see him.
Wrench, I'll trouble you. Ask Mr. Colpoys whether he approaches me as a friend, an acquaintance, or in his capacity of stage manager at the Wells, the tool of Burroughs.
Tom opens the door slightly. Gadd and Avonia join Rose at the fireplace. Tom at the door solemnly.
Colpoys, are you here as Gadd's bosom friend, or as a mere tool of Burroughs?
An inaudible colloquy follows between Tom and Colpoys. Tom's head is outside the door. His legs are seen to move convulsively, and the sound of suppressed laughter is heard. Gadd turning.
Well, well?
Tom closing the door sharply and facing Gadd with great seriousness.
He is here as a tool of Burroughs.
I will receive him.
Tom admits Colpoys, who carries a mean-looking part and a letter. After formally bowing to the ladies.
Oh, Gad. Mr. Burroughs instructs me to offer you this part in the pantomime.
Handing the part to Gadd.
Demon of Discontent.
Gadd takes the part and flings it to the ground. Avonia picks it up and reads it.
You refuse it?
I do.
With dignity.
Acquaint Mr. Burroughs with my decision, and add that I hope his pantomime will prove an utterly mirthless one. May Boxing Night, to those unfortunate enough to find themselves in the theatre, long remain a dismal memory, and may succeeding audiences scanty and dissatisfied.
Colpoys presents Gadd with the letter. Gadd opens it and reads.
I leave.
Sitting.
The Romeo, the Orlando, the Clifford leaves.
Avonia coming to Gadd, indicating some lines in the part.
Ferdy, this ain't so bad.
Reading.
I'm discontent. From Orkney's Isle to Dover, to make men's bile boil over, I and Dover.
Vaunia.
Taking the part from Avonia, with mingled surprise and pleasure.
Ho, ho, no, that's not bad.
Reading.
Tempers though sweet I whip up to a lather, make wives hate husbands, sons wish fathers farther. Vaunia, there is something to lay hold of here. I'll think this over.
Rising, addressing Colpoys.
Gus, I have thought this over. I play it.
They all gather round him and congratulate him. Avonia embraces and kisses him.
That's right.
I'm very pleased, Ferdinand.
Avonia tearfully.
That's right.
Ferdy.
Gadd in high spirits.
Egad, I play it. Gus, I'll stroll back with you to the Wells.
Shaking hands with Rose.
Miss Trelawney.
Avonia accompanies Colpoys and Gadd to the door, clinging to Gadd, who is flourishing the part.
Vaunia, I see myself in this.
Kissing her.
Steak for dinner.
Gadd and Colpoys go out. Tom shrieks with laughter. Avonia turning upon him angrily and volubly.
Yes, I heard you with Colpoys outside that door, if Gadd didn't. It's a pity, Mr. Wrench. You can't find something better to do.
Rose pacifically.
Hush, hush, Vonia. Tom, assist me with my basket. I'll give Vonia her belt.
Tom and Rose go behind the curtains and presently emerge, carrying the dress basket which they deposit. Avonia flouncing across the room.
Make fun of Gadd! An artist to the roots of his hair! There's more talent in Gadd's little finger!
Rose rummaging among the contents of the basket.
Vonia, Vonia.
And if Gadd is to play a demon in the pantomime, what do you figure as, Tom Wrench, among the half a dozen other things? Why, as part of a dragon. Yes, and which end?
Rose quietly to Tom.
Apologize to Vonia at once, Tom.
Tom meekly.
Mrs. Gadd, I beg your pardon.
Avonia coming to him and kissing him.
Granted, Tom, but you should be a little more considerate.
Rose holding up the belt.
Here.
Avonia taking the belt ecstatically.
Oh, isn't it lovely? Oh, Rose, you dear, you sweet thing.
Singing a few bars of the jewel song from Faust, then rushing at Rose and embracing her.
I'm going to try my dress on, to show Mrs. Burroughs. Come and help me into it. I'll unlock my door on my side.
Tom politely opens the door for her to pass out.
Thank you, Tom.
Kissing him again.
Only, you should be more considerate toward Gadd.
She disappears. Tom calling after her.
I will be, I will.
Shutting the door. Rose smiling.
Hush, poor Vonia.
Mending the fire.
Excuse me, Tom. Have you a fire upstairs in your room today?
Not today. It's Saturday. I never have a fire on Saturday.
Rose coming to him.
Why not?
Tom looking away from her.
Don't know. Creatures of habit.
Rose gently touching his coat sleeve.
Because if you would like to smoke your pipe by my fire while I'm with Vonia.
The key is heard to turn in the lock of the center door. Avonia from the next room.
It's unlocked.
I'm coming.
She unbolts the door on her side and goes into Avonia's room, shutting the door behind her. The lid of the dress basket is open, showing the contents. A pair of little satin shoes lie at the top. Tom takes up one of the shoes and presses it to his lips. There's a knock at the door. He returns the shoe to the basket, closes the lid, and walks away.
Yes?
The door opens slightly, and Imogen is heard. Imogen outside.
Is that you, Wrench?
Hello.
Imogen, in out-of-door costume, enters breathlessly. Imogen, closing the door, speaking rapidly and excitedly.
Mossop said you were in Rose's room.
Tom shaking hands with her.
She'll be here in a few minutes.
It's you I want. Let me sit down.
Tom going to the armchair.
Here.
Imogen sitting on the right of the table, panting.
Not near the fire.
What's up?
Oh, Wrench. Perhaps my fortune's made.
Tom, quite calmly.
I congratulate you, Jenny.
Do be quiet. Don't make such a racket. You see, things haven't been going at all satisfactorily at the Olympic lately. There's Mrs. Puddifant.
I know. No lady.
How do you know?
Guessed.
Quite right. And 1,000 other annoyances. And at last I took it into my head to consult Mr. Clandon, who married an aunt of mine and lives at Streatham, and he lent me £500.
What for?
Towards taking a theatre.
Tom dubiously.
500.
It's all he's good for, and he won't advance that unless I can get a further 5 or 800 from some other quarter.
What theatre?
The Pantheon happens to be empty.
Yes, it's been that for the last 20 years.
Don't throw wet blankets. I mean...
Referring to her tablets, which she carries in her muff.
I've got it all worked out in black and white. There's a deposit required on account of rent, £200. Cleaning the theatre...
Looking at Tom.
What do you say?
Cleaning that theatre?
I say another 200.
That would remove the top layer.
Cost of producing the opening play, £500. Balance for emergencies, 300. You generally have a balance for emergencies.
You generally have the emergencies, if not the balance.
Now the question is, will 500 produce the play?
What play?
Your play.
My?
Your comedy.
Tom turning to the fire in a low voice.
Rubbish.
Well, Mr. Clarendon thinks it isn't.
He faces her sharply.
I gave it to him to read, and he's quite taken with it.
Tom walking about, his hands in his pockets, his head down agitatedly.
Clarendon, Landon, what's his name?
Tony Clarendon. Anthony Clarendon.
Tom joking.
He's a
hop merchant.
No, he's not.
Sitting on the sofa, leaning his head in his hands.
He's a stunner.
Imogen rising.
So, you grasp the position. Theatre, manageress, author, play, found. And £800 wanted.
Tom rising.
Oh, Lord.
Who's got it?
Tom wildly.
The Queen's got it. Miss Burdett Coutts has got it.
Don't be a fool, Wrench. Do you remember old Mr. Morphew of Duncan Terrace? He used to take great interest in us all at the Wells. He has money.
He has gout. We don't see him now.
Gout. How lucky. That means he's at home. Will you run round to Duncan Terrace?
Tom looking down at his clothes.
I?
Nonsense, Wrench. We're not asking him to advance money on your clothes.
The clothes are the man, Jenny.
And the woman?
The face is the woman. There's the real inequality of the sexes.
I'll go. Is my face good enough?
Tom enthusiastically.
I should say so.
Imogen taking his hands.
It has been in my possession longer than you have had your oldest coat, Tom.
Make haste, Jenny.
Imogen running up to the door.
Oh, it will last till I get to Duncan Terrace.
Turning.
Tom, you may have to read your play to Mr. Morphew. Have you another copy? Uncle Clarendon has mine.
Tom holding his head.
I think I have. I don't know.
Look for it. Find it. If Morphew wants to hear it, we must strike while the iron's hot.
While the gold's hot. Ha ha ha!
Mrs. Mossop enters, showing some signs of excitement. Imogen pushing her aside.
Oh, get out of the way, Mrs. Mossop.
Imogen departs.
Upon my...
To Tom.
A visitor for Miss Trelawny. Where's Miss Trelawny?
With Mrs. Gadd. Mossop.
Don't bother me now.
Mossop. The apartment's vacated by the Telfers. They're to let him without giving me the preference.
You?
Tom seizing her hands and swinging her round.
I may be wealthy, sweet Rebecca.
Embracing her.
I may be rich and honoured.
Oh, have done.
Releasing herself.
My lodgers do take such liberties.
Tom at the door, grandly.
Becky, half a scuttle of coal to start with.
He goes out, leaving the door slightly open. Mrs. Mossop knocking at the centre door.
Miss Trelawny, my dear. Miss Trelawny?
The door opens a few inches. Rose looking out.
Why, what a clatter you and Mr. Wrench have been making.
Mrs. Mossop beckoning her mysteriously.
Come here, dear.
Rose closing the centre door and entering the room wonderingly.
Eh?
Mrs. Mossop in awe.
Sir William Gower.
Sir William.
Don't be vexed with me. I'll see if she's at home, I said. Oh, yes, woman, Miss Trelawny's at home, said he, and hobbled straight in. I've shut him in the Telfer's room.
There are 3 distinct raps with a stick at the right-hand door.
Oh!
Rose faintly.
Open it.
Mrs. Mossop opens the door, and Sir William enters.
Oh!
He is feebler, more decrepit than when last seen. He wears a plaid about his shoulders and walks with the aid of a stick. Mrs. Mossop at the door.
Ah, and a sweet thing Miss Trelawny is.
Sir William turning to her.
Are you a relative?
No, I am not a relative.
Go.
She departs. He closes the door with the end of his stick, facing Rose.
My mind is not commonly a wavering one, Miss Trelawny. But it has taken me some time, months, to decide upon calling on ye.
Won't you sit down?
Sir William, after a pause of hesitation, sitting upon the dress-basket.
Ugh.
Rose, with quiet dignity.
Have we no chairs? Do we lack chairs here, Sir William?
He gives her a quick, keen look, then rises and walks to the fire. Sir William suddenly bringing his stick down upon the table with violence.
My grandson! My grandson! Where is he?
Arthur?
I had but one.
Isn't he in Cavendish Square?
Isn't he in Cavendish Square? No, he is not in Cavendish Square, as you know well.
Oh, I don't know.
Tish.
When did he leave you?
Tish!
When?
He made his escape during the night, 22nd of August last.
Pointing his finger at her.
As you well know.
Sir William, I assure you.
Tish!
Taking off his gloves.
How often does he write to ye?
He does not write to me. He did write day after day, 2 or 3 times a day, for about a week. That was in June, when I came back here.
With drooping head.
He never writes now.
Visits ye?
No.
Comes troubadouring?
No. I have not seen him since that night. I refused to see him.
With a catch in her breath.
Why, he may be.
Sir William fumbling in his pocket.
Ah, but he's not. He's alive.
Producing a small packet of letters.
Arthur's alive.
Advancing to her.
And full of his tricks still. His great-aunt Trafalgar receives a letter from him once a fortnight, posted in London.
Rose holding out her hand for the letters.
Oh!
Sir William putting them behind his back.
Hey!
Rose faintly.
I thought you wished me to read them.
He yields them to her grudgingly, she taking his hand and bending over it.
Thank you.
Sir William withdrawing his hand with a look of disrelish.
What are ye doing, madam? What are ye doing?
He sits, producing his snuff-box. She sits upon the basket facing him and opens the packet of letters. Rose reading a letter.
To reassure you as to my well-being, I caused this to be posted in London by a friend.
Sir William pointed a finger at her again accusingly.
A friend.
Rose looking up with simple pride.
He would never call me that.
Reading.
I am in good bodily health, and as contented as a man can be who has lost the woman he loves and will love till his dying day. Ah.
Read no more. Return them to me. Give them to me, ma'am.
Rising, she restores the letters meekly. He peers into her face.
What's come to ye? You are not so much of a vixen as you were.
Rose, shaking her head.
No.
Sir William, suspiciously.
Less of the devil?
Sir William, I am sorry for having been a vixen, and for all my unruly conduct in Cavendish Square. I humbly beg your and Miss Gower's forgiveness.
Sir William taking snuff uncomfortably.
Pish! Extraordinary change.
Aren't you changed, Sir William, now that you have lost him?
I?
Don't you love him now the more?
His head droops a little, and his hands wander to the brooch which secures his plaid.
Let me take your shawl from you. You would catch cold when you go out.
He allows her to remove the plaid, protesting during the process.
I'll not trouble ye, ma'am. Much obleeged to ye, but I'll not trouble ye.
Rising.
I'll not trouble ye.
He walks away to the fireplace and up to the room. She folds the plaid and lays it upon the sofa. He looks round, speaking in an altered tone.
My dear, gypsying doesn't seem to be such a good trade with ye as it used to be by all accounts.
The centre door opens, and Avonia enters boldly, in the dress of a burlesque prince, cotton velvet shirt, edged with bullion trimming, a cap, white tights, ankle boots, etc. Avonia unconsciously.
How's this, Rose?
Ah!
Oh, go away, Vonia.
Sir Gower!
To Sir William.
Good morning.
She withdraws. Sir William pacing the room, again very violent.
Yes, and these are the associates you would have tempted my boy, my grandson, to herd with.
Flourishing his stick. Rose sitting upon the basket weakly.
That young lady doesn't live in that attire. She is preparing for the pantomime.
Sir William standing over her.
And now he's gone. Lured away, I suspect, by one of ye.
Pointing to the centre door.
By one of these harridans.
Avonia reappears defiantly.
Look here, Sir Gower.
Rose rising.
Go, Vonia.
Avonia to Sir William.
We've met before, if you remember, in Cavendish Square.
Rose sitting again helplessly.
Oh, Mrs. Gadd.
Mistress! A married lady!
Yes, I spent some of my honeymoon at your house.
What?
Excuse my dress. It's all in the way of my business. Just one word about Rose.
Please, Vonia.
Avonia to Sir William, who is glaring at her in horror.
Now, there's nothing to stare at, Sir Gower. If you must look anywhere in particular, look at that poor thing. A nice predicament you've brought her to.
Sir.
Correcting himself.
Madam.
You've brought her to beggary amongst you. You've broken her heart, and, what's worse, you've made her genteel. She can't act since she left your mansion. She can only mope about the stage with her eyes fixed like a person in a dream. Dreaming of him, I suppose, and of what it is to be a lady. And first, she's put upon half salary, and then today she gets the sack. The entire sack, Sir Gower. So there's nothing left for her but to starve, or to make artificial flowers. Miss Trelawny, I'm speaking of.
Going to Rose and embracing her.
Our Rose! Our Trelawny!
To Rose, breaking down.
Oh, excuse me for interfering, Ducky.
Retiring in tears.
Good day, Sir Gower.
She goes out. Sir William, after a pause, to Rose.
Is this the case?
Rose standing and speaking in a low voice.
Yes. As you have noticed, fortune has turned against me, rather.
Sir William, penitently.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I believe you've kept your word to us concerning Arthur.
Rose, not heeding him, looking before her dreamily.
My mother knew how fickle fortune could be to us gypsies. One of the greatest actors that ever lived warned her of that.
Miss Gower will also feel extremely...
Keene once warned Mother of that.
Sir William in an altered tone.
Keene? Which Keene?
Edmund Keene. My mother acted with Edmund Keene when she was a girl.
Sir William approaching her slowly, speaking in a queer voice.
With Keene? With Keene?
Yes?
Sir William at her side, in a whisper.
My dear, I've seen Edmund Keene.
Yes?
A young man then, I was. Quite different from the man I am now. Impulsive. Excitable. Keen.
Drawing a deep breath.
Ah, he was a splendid gypsy.
Rose looking down at the dress basket.
I have a little fillet in there that my mother wore as Cordelia to Keene's Lear.
I may have seen your mother also. I was somewhat different in those days.
Rose kneeling at the basket and opening it.
And the order and chain, and the sword he wore in Richard, he gave them to my father. I've always prized them.
She drags to the surface a chain with an order attached to it, and a sword belt and sword, all very theatrical and tawdry, and a little gold fillet. She hands him the chain.
That's the order.
Sir William handling it tenderly.
Keen. God bless me.
Rose holding up the fillet.
My poor mother's fillet.
Sir William looking at it.
I may have seen her.
Thoughtfully.
I was a young man then.
Looking at Rose steadily.
Put it on, my dear.
She goes to the mirror and puts on the fillet. Sir William examining the order.
Lord bless us. How he stirred me. How he...
He puts the chain over his shoulders. Rose turns to him. Rose advancing to him.
There.
Sir William looking at her.
Cordelia. Cordelia with Keen.
Rose adjusting the chain upon him.
This should hang so.
Returning to the basket and taking up the sword belt and sword.
Look.
Sir William handling them.
Keen.
To her in a whisper.
I'll tell ye, when I saw him as Richard, I was young and a fool. I'll tell ye, he almost fired me with an ambition to...
Fumbling with the belt.
How did he carry this?
Rose fastening the belt with the sword round him.
In this way.
Ah!
He paces the stage, growling and muttering and walking with a limp and one shoulder hunched. She watches him seriously.
Ah, he was a little man, too. I remember him as if it were last night. I remember...
Pausing and looking at her fixedly.
My dear, your prospects in life have been injured by your unhappy acquaintanceship with my grandson.
Rose gazing into the fire.
Poor Arthur's prospects in life. What of them?
Sir William testily.
Tish, tish, tish.
If I knew where he is.
Miss Trelawny, if you cannot act, you cannot earn your living.
How is he earning his living?
And if you cannot earn your living, you must be provided for.
Rose turning to him.
Provided for?
Miss Gower was kind enough to bring me here in a cab. She and I will discuss plans for making provision for ye while driving home.
Rose advancing to him.
Oh, I beg you will do no such thing, Sir William.
Hey!
I could not accept any help from you or Miss Gower.
You must. You shall.
I will not.
Sir William touching the order and the sword.
Ah, yes, I'll buy these of ye, my dear.
Oh, no, not for hundreds of pounds. Please take them off.
There is a hurried knocking at the door. Sir William, startled.
Who's there?
Struggling with the chain and belt.
Remove these.
The handle is heard to rattle. Sir William disappears behind the curtains. Imogen opens the door and looks in. Imogen seeing only Rose, and coming to her and embracing her.
Rose, darling, where is Tom Wrench?
He was here not long since.
Imogen going to the door and calling desperately.
Tom Wrench! Mr. Wrench!
Is anything amiss?
Tom!
Imogen.
Imogen returning to Rose.
Oh, my dear, forgive my agitation.
Tom enters buoyantly, flourishing the manuscript of his play.
I've found it, at the bottom of a box, deeper than did ever plummet sound.
To Imogen.
Hey, what's the matter?
Oh, Tom, old Mr. Morphew.
Tom blankly.
Isn't he willing?
Imogen with a gesture of despair.
I don't know. He's dead.
No.
3 weeks ago. Oh, what a chance he has missed.
Tom bangs his manuscript down upon the table savagely.
What is it, Tom? Imogen, what is it?
Imogen pacing the room.
I can't think of no one else.
Done again.
We shall lose it, of course.
Lose what?
The opportunity. Her opportunity. My opportunity. Your opportunity, Rose.
Rose coming to him.
My opportunity, Tom?
Tom pointing to the manuscript.
My play. My comedy. My youngest born. Jenny has a theatre. Could have one. Has 500 towards it. Put down by a man who believes in my comedy, God bless him. The only fellow who has ever believed.
Oh, Tom.
Turning to Imogen.
Oh, Imogen.
My dear, 500. We want another 5, at least.
Another 5?
Or 8.
And you are to play the part of Dora. Isn't she, Jenny? I mean, wasn't she?
Certainly. Just the sort of simple little miss you could play now, Rose. And we thought that old Mr. Morphew would help us in the speculation. Speculation! It's a dead certainty.
Dead certainty. Poor Morphew.
And here we are, stuck fast.
Tom sitting upon the dress-basket dejectedly.
And they'll expect me to rehearse that dragon tomorrow with enthusiasm.
Rose putting her arm around his shoulder.
Never mind, Tom.
No, I won't.
Taking her hand.
Oh, Rose.
Looking up at her.
Oh, Dora.
Sir William, divested of his theatrical trappings, comes from behind the curtain.
Oh, Tom.
Rising. Rose retreating.
Sir William Gower, Tom.
Sir William to Tom.
I had no wish to be disturbed, sir, and I withdrew.
Bowing to Imogen.
When that lady entered the room. I have been a party, it appears, to a consultation upon a matter of business.
To Tom.
Do I understand, sir, that you have been defeated in some project which would have served the interests of Miss Trelawny?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wicks.
Wrench.
Tish. Sir, it would give me pleasure. It would give my grandson, Mr. Arthur Gower, pleasure to be able to aid Miss Trelawny at the present moment.
Sir William, would you like to hear my play?
Sir William sharply.
Hey.
Looking round.
Ho ho.
My comedy.
Sir William cunningly.
So ye think I might be induced to fill the office ye designed for the late Mr.
Morphew.
Morphew, eh?
No, sir.
No.
Yes!
Sir William, after a short pause, quietly.
Read your play, sir.
Pointing to a chair at the table.
Sit down.
To Rose and Imogen.
Sit down.
Tom goes to the chair indicated. Miss Gower's voice is heard outside the door. Miss Gower outside.
William!
Rose opens the door. Miss Gower enters.
Oh, William, what has become of you? Has anything dreadful happened?
Sit down, Trafalgar. This gentleman is about to read a comedy. A cheer.
Testily.
Are there no cheers here?
Rose brings a chair and places it for Miss Gower beside Sir William's chair.
Sit down.
Miss Gower sitting, bewildered.
William, is all this quite...
Sir William sitting.
Yes, Trafalgar. Quite in place. Quite in place.
Imogen sits. Rose pulls the dress basket round as Colpoys and Gadd swagger in at the door. Colpoys smoking a pipe, Gadd a large cigar. Sir William to Tom, referring to Gadd and Colpoys.
Friends of yours?
Yes, Sir William.
Sir William to Gadd and Colpoys.
Sit down.
Imperatively.
Sit down and be silent.
Gadd and Colpoys seat themselves upon the sofa, like men in a dream. Rose sits on the dress basket. Avonia opening the center door slightly, in an anxious voice.
Rose?
Come in, ma'am, come in.
Avonia enters, coming to Rose. A cloak is now attached to the shoulders of Avonia's dress.
Sit down, ma'am, and be silent.
Avonia sits beside Rose, next to Miss Gower. Miss Gower in horror.
Oh!
Sir William restraining her.
Quite in place, Trafalgar, quite in place.
To Tom.
Now, sir.
Tom opening his manuscript and reading.
Life, a Comedy, by Thomas Wrench.
End of Act 3. Act 4 of Trelawny of the Wells by Arthur Wing Pinero. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 4. The scene represents the stage of a theatre, with the proscenium arch, and the dark and empty auditorium in the distance. The curtain is raised. The stage extends a few feet beyond the line of the proscenium, and is terminated by a row of old-fashioned footlights with metal reflectors. On the left from the proscenium arch runs a wall, in which is an open doorway supposed to admit to the green room. Right and left of the stage are the P and OP, and the first of the second entrances, with wings running in grooves according to the old fashion. Against the wall are some flats. Just below the footlights is a tea light burning gas, and below this the prompt table. On the right of the prompt table is a chair, and on the left another. Against the edge of the proscenium arch is another chair, and nearer on the right stands a large throne chair, with a gilt frame and red velvet seat, now much dilapidated. In the second entrance there are a property stool, a table, and a chair, all of a similar style to the throne chair, and in like condition. And on the center, as if placed there for the purpose of rehearsal, are a small circular table and a chair. On this table is a work-basket containing a ball of wool and a pair of knitting needles. And on the prompt table there is a book. A faded and ragged green baize covers the floor of the stage. The wings and the flats and borders suggest by their appearance a theatre fallen somewhat into decay. The light is a dismal one, but it is relieved by a shaft of sunlight entering through a window in the flies on the right. Mrs. Telfer is seated upon the throne chair in an attitude of dejection. Telfer enters from the green room. Telfer coming to her.
Is that you, Violet?
Is the reading over?
Almost. My part is confined to the latter half of the second act. So, being close to the green room door, I stole away.
It affords you no opportunity, James.
Telfer shaking his head.
A mere fragment.
Mrs. Telfer rising.
Well, but a few good speeches to a man of your stamp.
Yes, but this is so liney, Violet, so very liney. And what do you think the character is described as?
What?
An old, stagey, out-of-date actor.
They stand looking at each other for a moment silently. Mrs. Telfer falteringly.
Will you be able to get near it, James?
Telfer looking away from her.
I dare say.
Mrs. Telfer laying a hand upon his shoulder.
Well, that's all right then.
And you, what have they called you for if you're not in the play? They've not dared to suggest understudy.
Mrs. Telfer playing with her fingers.
They don't ask me to act at all, James.
Don't ask you?
Miss Parrott has offered me the position of wardrobe mistress.
Violet.
Hush.
Let us both go home.
Mrs. Telfer restraining him.
No, let us remain. We've been idle 6 months, and I can't bear to see you without your watch and all your comforts about you.
Telfer pointing toward the green room.
And so this newfangled stuff and these dandified people are to push us, and such as us, from our stools.
Yes, James, just as some other new fashion will, in course of time, push them from their stools.
From the green room comes the sound of a slight clapping of hands, followed by a murmur of voices. The Telfers move away. Imogen, elaborately dressed, enters from the green room and goes leisurely to the prompt table. She is followed by Tom, manuscript in hand, smarter than usual in appearance, and he by O'Dwyer, an excitable Irishman of about 40, with an extravagant head of hair, who carries a small bundle of parts in brown paper covers. Tom and O'Dwyer join Imogen. O'Dwyer to Tom.
Mr. Hinch, I congratulate ye. I have that honour, sir. Your piece will do, sir. It will take the town, mark me.
Thank you, O'Dwyer.
Look at the sunshine. There's a good omen at any rate.
Oh, sunshine's nothing.
To Tom.
But did ye observe the gloom of their faces while you were reading?
Imogen anxiously.
Yes, they did look glum.
Glum? It might have been a funeral. There's a healthy prognostication for ye, if you like it's infallible.
A keen-faced gentleman and a lady enter from the green room and stroll across the stage to the right, where they lean against the wings and talk. Then 2 young gentlemen enter, and Rose follows. Rose shaking hands with Telfer.
Why didn't you sit near me, Mr. Telfer?
Going to Mrs. Telfer.
Fancy our being together again and at the West End.
To Telfer.
Do you like the play?
Like it? There's not a speech in it, my dear. Not a real speech. Nothing to dig your teeth into.
O'Dwyer allotting the parts under the direction of Tom and Imogen.
Mr. Mortimer.
One of the young gentlemen advances and receives his part from O'Dwyer and retires reading it.
Mr. Denzil.
The keen-faced gentleman takes his part, then joins Imogen on her left and talks to her. The lady now has something to say to the solitary young gentleman. Tom to O'Dwyer, quietly handing him a part.
Miss Brewster.
O'Dwyer beckoning to the lady, who does not observe him, her back being towards him.
Come here, me love.
Tom to O'Dwyer.
No, O'Dwyer. Not your love.
Not?
No.
No?
Why, you are meeting her this morning for the first time.
Well, that's true enough.
Approaching the lady and handing her the part.
Miss Brewster.
Much obliged.
O'Dwyer quietly to her.
It'll fit you like it, love, darling.
The lady sits conning her part. O'Dwyer returns to the table. Telfer to Rose.
Your lover in the play? Which of these young sparks plays your lover, Harold or Gerald?
Gerald, I don't know. There are some people not here today, I believe.
Mr. Hunston.
A second young gentleman advances, receives his part, and joins the other young gentleman in the wings.
Not that young man, I hope. Isn't he a little bandy?
One of the finest Macduffs I ever fought with was bow-legged.
Mr. Teller.
Tom to O'Dwyer.
No, Telfer.
Telfer.
Telfer draws himself erect, puts his hand in his breast, but otherwise remains stationary. Mrs. Telfer anxiously.
That's you, James?
Come on, Mr. Telfer, look alive, sir.
Tom to O'Dwyer.
Shh, don't.
Telfer advances to the prompt table slowly. He receives his part from O'Dwyer. To Telfer awkwardly.
I hope the little part of Pogs appeals to you, Mr. Telfer. Only a sketch, of course, but there was nothing else quite in your...
Nothing? To whose share does the Earl fall?
Oh, Mr. Denzil plays Lord Paracourt.
Denzil? I've never heard of him. Will you get to me today?
We expect to do so.
Very well.
Stiffly.
Let me be called in the street.
He walks away. Mrs. Telfer relieved.
Thank heaven. I was afraid that James would break out.
Rose to Mrs. Telfer.
But you, dear Mrs. Telfer, you weren't at the reading. What are you cast for?
I?
Wiping away a tear.
I'm the wardrobe mistress of this theatre.
You?
Embracing her.
Oh.
Mrs. Telfer composing herself.
Miss Trelawny. Rose, my child, if we are set to scrub a floor, and we may come to that yet, let us make up our minds to do it legitimately, with dignity.
She disappears and is seen no more.
Miss Trelawny, come here, my dear.
Hush!
Miss Trelawny.
Rose receives her part from O'Dwyer, and after a word or two with Tom and Imogen, joins the two young gentlemen who are in the second entrance left. The lady, who has been seated, now rises and crosses to the left, where she meets the keen-faced gentleman, who has finished his conversation with Imogen. The lady to the keen-faced gentleman.
I say, Mr. Denzil, who plays Gerald?
Gerald?
The man I have my scene with in the third act, the hero.
Oh, yes. Oh, a young gentleman from the country, I understand.
From the country.
He's coming up by train this morning, Miss Parrott tells me. From Bath or somewhere?
Well, whoever he is, if he can't play that scene with me decently, my part's not worth rags.
Tom to Imogen, who is sitting at the prompt table.
Shall we begin, Miss Parrott?
Certainly, Mr. Wrench.
We'll begin, O'Dwyer.
The lady titters at some remark from the keen-faced gentleman. O'Dwyer coming down the stage violently.
Clear the stage there, I'll not have it. Upon mine honour, this is the noisiest theatre I ever set foot in.
The icings are cleared, the characters disappearing into the green room.
I can't hear myself speak for all the riot and confusion.
My dear O'Dwyer, there is no riot. There is no confusion.
Imogen to O'Dwyer.
Except the riot and confusion you are making.
You know, you're admirably earnest, O'Dwyer, but a little excitable.
O'Dwyer calming himself.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I'm sure now.
Emphatically.
My system is, begin as you mean to go on.
But we don't mean to go on like that.
Of course not, of course not. Now, let me see.
Pointing to the right centre.
We shall want another chair here.
Another chair?
A garden chair.
O'Dwyer excitably.
Another chair? Now then, another chair. Properties, where are ye? Do you hear me calling? Must I raise me voice to you?
He rushes away. Imogen to Tom.
Phew! Where did you get him from?
Tom, wiping his brow.
Known Michael for years. Most capable, invaluable fellow.
Imogen simply.
I wish he was dead.
So do I.
O'Dwyer returns carrying a light chair.
Well, where's the property man?
O'Dwyer pleasantly.
It's all right now. He's gone to dinner.
Tom placing the chair in position.
Ah, then he'll be back sometime during the afternoon.
Looking about him.
That will do.
Taking up his manuscript.
Call. Haven't you engaged a call boy yet, O'Dwyer?
I have, sir, and the best in London.
Where is he?
He has sent an apology for his non-attendance.
Oh.
A sad case, ma'am. He's burying his wife.
Wife?
The call boy?
What's his age?
You see, he happens to be an elder brother of me own.
Oh, Lord. Never mind. Let's go on. Call Miss...
Looking toward the right.
Is that the hall-keeper?
A man, suggesting by his appearance that he is the hall-keeper, presents himself with a card in his hand. O'Dwyer furiously.
Now then, are we continually being interrupted in this fashion? Have I or have I not given the strict orders that nobody whatever...
Hush, hush. See whose card it is. Give me the card.
O'Dwyer handing the card to Tom.
I'll make the rules here. In a week's time you'll not know this for the same theatre.
Tom has passed the card to Imogen without looking at it. Imogen staring at it blankly.
Oh.
Eh?
Sir William.
Sir William?
What can he want? What shall we do?
Tom, after referring to his watch, to the hall-keeper.
Bring this gentleman on to the stage.
The hall-keeper withdraws. To O'Dwyer.
Make yourself scarce for a few moments, O'Dwyer. Some private business.
All right. I've plenty to occupy me. I'll begin to frame those rules.
He disappears. Imogen to Tom.
Not here.
Tom to Imogen.
The boy can't arrive for another 20 minutes. Besides, we must sooner or later accept responsibility for our act.
Imogen leaning upon his arm.
Heavens! I foretold this.
Tom, grimly.
I know. Said so all along.
If he should withdraw his capital...
Tom with clenched hands.
At least that would enable me to write a melodrama.
Why?
I should then understand the motives and the springs of crime.
The hall-keeper reappears, showing the way to Sir William Gower. Sir William's hat is drawn down over his eyes, and the rest of his face is almost entirely concealed by his plaid. The hall-keeper withdraws. Tom receiving Sir William.
How do you do, Sir William?
Sir William giving him 2 fingers, with a grunt.
These are odd surroundings for you to find yourself in.
Imogen comes forward.
Miss Parrott.
Sir William advancing to her, giving her 2 fingers.
Good morning, ma'am.
This is perfectly delightful.
What is?
Imogen faintly.
Your visit.
Weakly.
Give me a chair.
Looking about him.
Have ye no chairs here?
Yes.
Tom places the throne chair behind Sir William, who sinks into it.
Thank ye. Much obliged.
To Imogen.
Sit.
Imogen hurriedly fetches the stool and seats herself beside the throne chair. Sir William produces his snuff-box.
You are astonished at seeing me here, I dare say.
Not at all.
Sir William glancing at Tom.
Addressing the lady.
To Imogen.
You are surprised to see me?
Very.
Sir William to Tom.
Ah.
Tom retreats, getting behind Sir William's chair and looking down upon him.
The truth is, I am beginning to regret my association with ye.
Imogen, her hand to her heart.
Oh.
Tom, under his breath. Holding his fist over Sir William's head.
Oh!
Imogen piteously.
You don't propose to withdraw your capital, Sir William?
That would be a breach of faith, ma'am.
Ah.
Tom walking about jauntily.
Ha!
Imogen seizing Sir William's hand.
Friend!
Sir William withdrawing his hand sharply.
I'll thank ye not to repeat that action, ma'am. But I have been slightly indisposed since I made your acquaintance in Clerkenwell. I find myself unable to sleep at night.
To Tom.
That comedy of yours, it buzzes continually in my head, sir.
It was written with such an intention, Sir William, to buzz in people's heads.
Ah, I'll take care you don't read me another, Mr. Wicks. At any rate, another which contains a character resembling a member of my family. A late member of my family. I don't relish being reminded of late members of my family in this way, and being kept awake at night, thinking, turning over in my mind.
Imogen soothingly.
Of course not.
Sir William taking snuff.
Pish! When I saw Kean as Richard, he reminded me of no member of my family. Shakespeare knew better than that, Mr. Wicks.
To Imogen.
And therefore, ma'am, upon receiving your letter last night, acquainting me with your intention to commence rehearsing your comedy.
Glancing at Tom.
His comedy.
Imogen softly.
Our comedy.
Today at noon, I determined to present myself here, and request to be allowed to
watch the rehearsal.
The rehearsal of those episodes in your comedy which remind me of a member of my family. A late member.
Imogen constrainedly.
Oh, certainly.
Tom firmly.
By all means.
Sir William rising, assisted by Tom.
I don't wish to be steered at by any of your, what do you call 'em, your gypsy crew.
Ladies and gentlemen of the company, we call 'em.
Sir William tartly.
I don't care what ye call 'em.
Tom restores the throne chair to its former position.
Put me into a curtained box where I can hear and see and not be seen. And when I have heard and seen enough, I'll return home and obtain a little sleep. And tomorrow I shall be well enough to sit in court again.
Tom calling.
Mr. O'Dwyer.
O'Dwyer appears. Tom speaks a word or two to him, and hands him the manuscript of the play. Imogen to Sir William falteringly.
And if you are pleased with what you see this morning, perhaps you will attend another.
Sir William angrily.
Not I. After today I wash my hands of ye. What do plays and players do, coming into my head, disturbing my repose?
More composedly to Tom, who has returned to his side.
Your comedy has merit, sir. You call it life. There is a character in it. A young man, not unlike life, not unlike a late member of my family. Oblige me with your arm.
To Imogen.
Oh, madam, I have arrived at the conclusion that Miss Trelawny belongs to a set of curious people who in other paths might have been useful members of society. But after today I've done with ye. Done with ye.
To Tom.
My box, sir. My box.
Tom leads Sir William up the stage. Tom to O'Dwyer.
Begin rehearsal. Begin rehearsal. Call Miss Trelawny.
Tom and Sir William disappear.
Miss Trelawny, Miss Trelawny.
Rushing to the left.
Miss Trelawny, how long am I going to stand here shouting myself hoarse?
Rose appears. Rose gently.
Am I called?
O'Dwyer instantly calm.
You are, darling.
O'Dwyer takes his place at the prompt table, book in hand. Imogen and Rose stand together in the center. The other members of the company come from the green room and stand in the wings, watching the rehearsal.
Now then.
Reading from the manuscript.
At the opening of the play, Peggy and Dora are discovered. Who's Peggy? Where's Peggy? Am I to...
Here I am. I am Peggy.
O'Dwyer calm.
Of course you are, lovey. Ma'am, I should say.
Yes, you should.
Peggy is seated on the right, Dora on the left.
Rose and Imogen seat themselves accordingly. In a difficulty.
Now, Peggy on the left, Dora on the right.
Violently.
This is the worst script I've ever held in me hand.
Rose and Imogen change places.
So horribly scrawled over, interlined, and no, I was quite correct. Peggy on the right and Dora on the left.
Imogen and Rose again change seats. O'Dwyer reads from the manuscript.
Peggy is engaged in I can't decipher this. A script like this is a disgrace to any well-conducted theatre.
To Imogen.
I don't know what you're doing. Dora is...
To Rose.
You're also doing something or another. Now then, when the curtain rises, you are discovered, both of ye, employed in the same way described.
Tom returns.
Here you are.
Resigning the manuscript to Tom and pointing out a passage.
I've got it smooth as far as there.
Thank you.
O'Dwyer seating himself.
You're welcome.
Tom to Rose and Imogen.
You're not in your right positions. Change places, please.
Imogen and Rose change seats once more. O'Dwyer rises and goes away. O'Dwyer out of sight violently.
A script like that's a scandal. If there's ever a living soul that can read bad handwriting, I am that man. But of all the...
Hush, hush, Mr. O'Dwyer.
O'Dwyer returning to his chair.
Here.
Tom taking the book from the prompt table and handing it to Imogen.
You are reading.
O'Dwyer sotto voce.
I thought so.
Tom to Rose.
You are working.
Working?
Tom pointing to the basket on the table.
There are your needles and wool.
Rose takes the wool and the needles out of the basket. Tom takes the ball of wool from her hand, places it in the center of the stage.
You have allowed the ball of wool to roll from your lap onto the grass. You will see the reason for that presently.
I remember it, Mr. Wrench.
The curtain rises.
To Imogen.
Miss Parrott.
Imogen referring to her part.
What do I say?
Nothing. You yawn.
Imogen yawning in a perfunctory way.
As if you meant it, of course.
Well, of course.
Your yawn must tell the audience that you are a young lady who may be driven by boredom to almost any extreme.
O'Dwyer jumping up.
This sort of thing.
Yawning extravagantly.
Yo.
Tom irritably.
Thank you, O'Dwyer. Thank you.
O'Dwyer sitting again.
You're welcome.
Tom to Rose.
You speak.
Rose reading from her part, retaining the needles and the end of the wool.
What are you reading, Miss Chaffinch?
Imogen reading from her part.
A novel.
And what is the name of it?
The Seasons.
Why is it called that?
Because all the people in it do seasonable things.
For instance?
In spring, fall in love.
In the summer?
Become engaged. Delightful.
Autumn?
Merry. Heavenly.
Winter?
Quarrel.
Tom to Imogen.
Close the book. With a bang.
O'Dwyer bringing his hands together sharply by way of suggestion.
Bang.
Tom irritably.
Yes, yes, O'Dwyer.
To Imogen.
Now rise.
Up you get.
And cross to Dora.
Imogen going to Rose.
Miss Harrington, Don't you wish occasionally that you were engaged to be married?
No.
Not on wet afternoons?
I am perfectly satisfied with this busy little life of mine as your aunt's companion.
Tom to Imogen.
Walk about discontentedly.
Imogen walking about.
I've nothing to do. Let's tell each other our ages.
I am 19.
Tom to Imogen.
In a loud whisper.
I am 22.
O'Dwyer rising and going to Tom.
Now, hadn't ye better make that 26?
Imogen joined them with asperity.
Why? Why?
No, certainly not. Go on.
Imogen angrily.
Not till Mr. O'Dwyer retires into his corner.
O'Dwyer?
O'Dwyer takes his chair and retires to the prompt corner, out of sight, with an air of martyrdom. Tom addresses Rose.
You speak.
I shall think and feel the same when I am 22, I am sure. I shall never wish to marry.
Tom to Imogen.
Sit on the stump of that tree.
Where's that?
Tom pointing to the stool down the stage.
Where that stool is.
Imogen sitting on the stool.
Miss Harrington, who is the Mr. Gerald Lee who is expected down today?
Lord Paracourt's secretary.
Old and poor.
Neither, I believe. He is the son of a college chum of Lord Paracourt's. So I heard his lordship tell Lady McArchie, and is destined for public life.
Then he is young.
Extremely, I understand.
Imogen jumping up in obedience to a sign from Tom.
Oh, how can you be so spiteful?
I?
You mean he's too young.
Too young for what?
Too young for... Oh, bother.
Tom looking towards the keen-faced gentleman.
Mr. Denzil.
O'Dwyer putting his head round the corner.
Mr. Denzil.
The keen-faced gentleman comes forward, reading his part, and meets Imogen. The gentleman speaking in the tones of an old man.
Ah, Miss Peggy.
Tom to Rose.
Rise, Miss Trelawny.
O'Dwyer, his head again appearing.
Rise, darling.
Rose rises. The gentleman to Imogen.
Your bravura has just arrived from London. Lady McArchie wishes you to try it over. And if I may add my entreaties.
Imogen taking his arm.
Delighted, Lord Paracourt.
To Rose.
Miss Harrington, bring your work indoors and hear me squall.
To the gentleman.
Why, you must have telegraphed to town.
The gentleman as they cross the stage.
Yes, but even telegraphy is too sluggish in executing your smallest command.
Imogen and the keen-faced gentleman go off on the left. He remains in the wings. She returns to the prompt table.
Why do Miss Chaffinch and her girlfriends talk of nothing, think of nothing, apparently, but marriage? Ought a woman to make marriage the great object of life? Can there be no other? I wonder.
She goes off, the wool trailing after her, and disappears into the green room. The ball of wool remains in the centre of the stage. Tom reading from his manuscript.
The piano is heard, and Peggy's voice singing. Gerald enters.
Imogen clutching Tom's arm.
There!
Ah, yes, here is Mr. Gordon.
Arthur appears in a travelling coat. Tom and Imogen hasten to him and shake hands with him vigorously. Tom on Arthur's right.
How are you?
Imogen on his left nervously.
How are you?
Arthur breathlessly.
Miss Parrott! Mr. Wrench! Forgive me if I am late. My cab horse galloped from the station.
We have just reached your entrance. Have you read your part over?
Read it?
Taking it from his pocket.
I know every word of it. It has made my journey from Bristol like a flight through the air. Why, Mr. Wrench!
Turning over the leaves of his part.
Some of this is almost me.
Tom and Imogen nervously.
Come, you enter.
Pointing to the right.
There.
returning to the prompt table with Imogen.
You stroll on, looking about you. Now, Mr. Gordon.
Arthur advancing to the center of the stage, occasionally glancing at his part.
A pretty place. I'm glad I left the carriage at the lodge and walked through the grounds.
There is an exclamation proceeding from the auditorium, and the sound of the overturning of a chair.
Oh!
O'Dwyer appearing, looking into the auditorium.
What's that? This is the noisiest theatre I ever set foot in.
Don't heed it.
To Arthur.
Go on, Mr. Gordon.
Somebody's singing. A girl's voice. Lord Paracourt made no mention of anybody but his hostess, the dry Scotch widow.
Picking up the ball of wool.
This is Lady McArchie's. I'll be bound. The very colour suggests spectacles and iron-grey curls.
Dora returns.
Calling.
Dora!
Dora, where are you?
The gentleman going to the green room door.
Dora? Dora!
Rose appears in the wings. Rose to Tom.
I'm sorry.
Go on, please.
There is another sound nearer the stage of the overturning of some object.
What?
Don't heed it.
Rose coming face to face with Arthur.
Oh!
Rose!
Go on, Mr. Gordon.
Arthur to Rose, holding out the ball of wool.
I beg your pardon. Are you looking for this?
Yes, I...
Dropping her head upon his breast.
Oh, Arthur.
Sir William enters and comes forward on Arthur's right.
Arthur.
Arthur turning to him.
Grandfather!
O'Dwyer indignantly.
Upon my soul.
Leave the stage, O'Dwyer.
O'Dwyer vanishes. Imogen goes to those who are in the wings and talks to them. Gradually they withdraw into the green room. Rose sinks onto the stool. Tom comes to her and stands beside her.
What's this? What is it?
Arthur bewildered.
Sir, you, and Rose are the last persons I expected to meet here.
Ah.
Perhaps you've both already learned from Mr. Wrench or Miss Parrott that I have become a gypsy, sir.
Not I.
Pointed to Tom and Imogen.
These people have thought it decent to allow me to make the discovery myself.
He sinks into the throne chair. Tom goes to Sir William. Arthur joins Imogen. They talk together rapidly and earnestly. Tom to Sir William.
Sir William, the secret of your grandson's choice of a profession.
Sir William, scornfully.
Profession?
Was one that I was pledged to keep as long as it was possible to do so. And pray remember that your attendance here this morning is entirely your own act. It was our intention.
Sir William struggling to his feet.
Where is the door? The way to the door.
And let me beg you to understand this, Sir William, that Miss Trelawny was, till a moment ago, as ignorant as yourself of Mr. Arthur Gower's doings, of his movements, of his whereabouts. She would never have thrown herself in his way in this manner. Whatever conspiracy...
Conspiracy! The right word, conspiracy.
Whatever conspiracy there has been is my own. To bring these two young people together again. To make them happy.
Rose holds out her hand to Tom. He takes it. Sir William looking about him.
The door! The door!
Arthur coming to Sir William.
Grandfather, may I, when rehearsal is over, venture to call in Cavendish Square?
Call?
Just to see Aunt Trafalgar, sir. I hope Aunt Trafalgar is well, sir.
Sir William with a slight change of tone.
Your great-aunt Trafalgar? Yes. I suppose she will consent to see ye.
Ah, sir.
But I shall be out. I shall not be within doors.
Then, if Aunt Trafalgar will receive me, sir, do you think I may be allowed to bring Miss Trelawney with me?
What? Ugh! I perceive ye have already acquired the impudence of your vagabond class, sir. The brazen effrontery of a set of—
Rose, rising and facing him.
Forgive him, forgive him. Oh, Sir William, why may not Arthur become some day a splendid gypsy?
Eh?
Like—
Sir William peering into her face.
Like?
Yes, sir. A gypsy. Though of a different order from the old order which is departing. A gypsy of the new school.
Sir William to Rose.
Well, Miss Gower is a weak, foolish lady. For aught I know, she may allow this young man to take ye.
I would accompany Rose, of course, Sir William.
Sir William tartly.
Thank ye, ma'am.
Turning.
I'll go to my carriage.
Sir, if you have the carriage here, and if you would have the patience to sit out the rest of the rehearsal, we might return with you to Cavendish Square.
Sir William, choking.
Grandfather, we are not rich people, and a cab to us.
Sir William exhausted.
Arthur.
Sir William will return to his box.
Going up the stage.
O'Dwyer.
Sir William protesting weakly.
No, sir, no.
O'Dwyer appears.
Mr. O'Dwyer, escort Sir William Gower to his box.
Arthur goes up the stage with Sir William. Sir William still uttering protests. Rose and Imogen embrace. O'Dwyer giving an arm to Sir William.
Lean on me, sir, heavily, sir.
Shall we proceed with the rehearsal, Sir William, or wait till you are seated?
Sir William violently.
Wait! Confound ye! Do you think I want to remain here all day?
Sir William and O'Dwyer disappear. Tom, coming forward with Arthur on his right, wildly.
Go on with the rehearsal. Mr. Gordon and Miss Rose Trelawny. Miss Trelawny.
Rose goes to him.
Trelawny, late of the Wells, let...
Gripping Arthur's hand tightly, he bows his head upon Rose's shoulder.
Oh, my dears, let us get on with the rehearsal.
End of Act 4. Enda Trelawny of the Wells by Arthur Wing PINERO.